Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Elevator Nights. We're here for you every single Sunday during the quarantine and maybe a little bit longer because this has been going so well. So Elevator Nights, to give you some background, we've done 38 live events that normally have 300 to 1,000 people in person. I've kept those events free for the last 6 years. Now that cost me around $300,000 a year to keep free, but I do it as my way to give back to entrepreneurs all over the country. Most of our events on the West Coast, sometimes we do them in Florida, and New York, and Chicago, but we try to focus on San Diego, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, Arizona, because that's what we're local to. So during the quarantine time, we decided to take these virtual events. So we've done 6 of these events now, and we should be doing them for a few more weeks during the quarantine, and then we'll make a decision after that. These events are completely free. All we ask is that you get involved inside of the Q&A, inside of the comments, inside of the captions, talk to us in there, and then we'll be choosing prizes. During the prizes, we're either going to give away these 100millionacademy.com boxes. These are really heavy. So this is from 100millionacademy.com. It's a wooden crate full of gifts and supplies. Has everything from like Steve Aoki headphones, books, coffee, chargers, all different types of gadgets for entrepreneurs. We also give away cash via Cash App. We also give away Bitcoin via Coinbase. And so if you have Cash App, you don't have to have Coinbase, but something to receive Bitcoin, we'll be doing giveaways throughout the next 3 hours. Every 30 minutes to an hour, I'm going to be asking questions during certain speakers. So make sure you're listening along and seeing what they're saying. I will ask questions, and then here inside of the comments, just answer those. You don't have to answer necessarily the fastest. Just make sure you're answering correct. We'll choose winners, and I'll send money via Cash App, via Bitcoin, or some of these 100millionacademy.com wooden crates. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes of social media tips, and then we'll bring out our first guest speaker. The reason that tonight, before I say any tips, the reason for tonight is called the $1 Billion Elevator Night. Every one of our speakers has either had a $1 billion exit or currently owns a $1 billion company, and one of our speakers has done 7 $1 billion plus angel investments, meaning they invested in a company early, and those companies are valued over $1 billion each now. So it'll be very fun tonight. It's our $1 billion night. One of my favorite TV shows is called Billions, which is also on Sunday nights, but luckily it won't be on until 9 o'clock tonight. We're going to be ending at 8 o'clock. So it's 3 hours. Every speaker is around 20 minutes, and I'll be asking questions, and you can ask questions here inside the comment section. All right, so let me give you 2 minutes of quick social media tips. During these times, this summer, because the economy has changed, you want to change the tonality of your social media content. What that means is this is not the time to be extremely flashy and showing money in people's faces and like being overly aggressive with your content. This is the time to talk about culture, caring, charity, hard work, things that people can do in their homes, teaching people something. That's going to be your best form of content. What I mean by that is, if you're a really good plumber, or you own a bowling alley, or you're a dog sitter, talking about the behind the scenes of your work is actually really compelling content. And a lot of times you think it's boring because you've been in the pet industry for years, or you've owned a bowling alley for years, or you've been a plumber for years. And so for you think that industry is boring because you've only done that your whole life, right? For us, your fans and followers that are watching you, that's interesting content. Think of it like a magician. For a magician, they know the trick is really boring because they've done the same trick hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, right? They've done that same card trick over and over and over. But for us, as fans and followers watching that magician, it looks amazing to us and it's very exciting. So you want to think of yourself as the magician. Show people the behind the scenes. Show them the magic of what you do. Doesn't matter if you're a web designer, an accountant, you make phone cases, you make wooden crates, whatever it is that you do, think about your content, showing it to people, and make it interesting and compelling for them. Other types of content is funny content. It doesn't have to be like an actual comedian, but things that people can engage with and be entertained by. So that's my main tips on any social media platform, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc. You want to create content that's either teaching somebody something or making something funny and shareable for them to enjoy during these tough times. So our first speaker is a dear friend. She actually started her company in her living room, built up over 1,000 employees, and ended up selling her company for $1.2 billion in cash. Besides the business story, you're just going to love listening to her as a person and what she's done and how she built up that company, because during that time, she was also at the same time filming over 1,000 episodes for QVC and having to basically build her company out of the green room at QVC offices, scaling this monumental cosmetics company. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. JamieKernLima.
Yeah, it has been a wild journey. I know tonight's all about billion-dollar exits and billion-dollar companies. And this is really a story of, having this idea, starting it in my living room with literally close to nothing. And then thinking, oh, okay, I have an idea that I think is going to change so many lives and change the world. And then kind of realizing that journey that so many entrepreneurs go through where you're like, oh, it's not just as easy as having a great idea. Um, it's a lot of work, and it was super tough. I have a skin condition called rosacea, and there was just no makeup out there that was working for me. And at the time, by the way, Dan, at the time it was 2008, and I just want to bring that up because I know so many people that are watching live right now are, for the first time ever, dealing with a super tough. Time, one of the worst economic times of for many people their whole lifetime. And so when we launched It Cosmetics, it was 2008. And at that time, there was a similar tone in the economy where it was like impossible to get capital. It was really tough on a lot of business owners. And it was kind of this time where, I couldn't afford to hire anybody. But during times like that, you also get really, really scrappy and really creative, and you kind of just figure out how to do everything you don't know how to do. And a lot of times, some of the most brilliant companies, I think you have TomBilyeu with Quest on today as well. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think he also launched in 2008, Quest. So it's wild. You have $2 billion companies, that $1 billion+ companies that were both born right during one of those just super tough times. And I want to share that because I think a lot of people out there are looking for hope right now. They're kind of freaking out over what's going to happen to their business, and do they pivot, and how do they pivot, and all those things. So this was 2008, and I just had this idea, and I was like, this is needed. Like, if I can't find anything that works for me, there must be so many other people out there that also have just been frustrated with makeup or given up on makeup. And so it was really this passion to create something that actually worked and solved a problem. But also at the time, when you looked out in the beauty industry, like all you saw were kind of like photoshopped, airbrush images. And so someone like me with a skin issue, I didn't see anyone that looked like me, or a product that would cover skin like mine. And so I really sort of, bigger than just launching a company, I had this mission or this vision, kind of this why really that drove me, which was to shift culture in the beauty industry to be one that's more inclusive, that showed all types of skin challenges, and women and men of all shapes, sizes, skin tones, everything. So I poured all of my savings, my husband as well. We wrote the business plan on our honeymoon flight to South Africa. Wow. I was working as a television news anchor, so I quit my job. We went all in, and that was the start of 100-hour weeks. So many of you guys online right now, you might know those awesome 100-hour weeks. And we were just all in, and I thought, okay, I'm going to create a product better than anything that's out there. And I thought that would be enough. And then I learned that it wasn't. So it was just a super tough journey. All of the experts that I've put on pedestals, right? Like I grew up shopping at Sephora and Ulta and department stores. And I thought, oh my gosh, they're going to see this product and freak out, and they're going to want it. And every single one of them said no. And I wanted to do really what hadn't been done before, which was showing images of real women, and they all thought it wasn't going to work and that people weren't going to buy it. And even QVC, all of them said no. So it was 3 years of no's, and it was really tough. And to the point where it's like, I was doing every job, right? Even the ones you don't know how to do because you can't afford to hire anyone else, and just figuring it out. And it was thank God for social media, because it was real women and men that were posting their own before and afters online and spreading the word. And that's how our product, that's how we kept the lights on in the early years in our office, which was our living room. And 3 years in, got a really, really big break from QVC, and got one shot in 10 minutes. to either. And by the way, Dan, we were selling like 2 to 3 orders a day on our website. For QVC, as you know, as so many people know, you have to sell a lot more than that. Their sales goals are huge. So we had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in 10 minutes to hit their sales goal or not come back.
Wow.
So it was, I mean, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account at that time. And it was super scary. Everything was on the line for this 10-minute window to either hit their sales goal or not come back. And I'll save this story for another time, but it was one of the biggest risks I've ever taken in my entire life about just taking a chance on the power of authenticity. And that one shot we got on QVC. But I took a huge risk and did something crazy in that world. And we ended up selling out in that 10-minute window. And that one airing turned into 101 the next year. And then over 250 live shows on QVC. And I did all of them myself for 8 years. And we grew and grew and grew, and we became the largest beauty brand in QVC history, which I just share that because for 3 years, they told us no, that we weren't right for them. And we eventually got into the department stores and Ulta and Sephora and grew to be a top brand everywhere. And grew to over 1,000 employees and the second largest luxury makeup company in the country. And then I sold It Cosmetics in a 100% all cash deal for $1.2 billion to L'Oreal. And they made me their first woman to ever hold a CEO title in their history. So it was just, it's been a wild experience all in the past 12 years. But it started with an idea with very little money in one of the toughest economic times in our history. So that's a little snapshot of the It Cosmetics story.
So how did you handle hearing so many no's and still keep going?
Yeah, it's so tough, right? Like I mean, and it was brutal. There were times, like I remember one no from QVC where like I thought it was going to be a yes. I'm like, okay, this is going to be perfect. Like, cause QVC's live, right? Like you can't, it's not like an airbrush ad in a magazine. Like I wanted to show live, like here's why I poured my heart and soul into this product. And I want to show, my own bare skin and women that, all different skin tones and skin types. I want to show live how it worked. And I thought this is the perfect channel for us. And I'll never forget, even it was like 2.5 years in, I finally got the head guy, like the head who would transform QVC beauty. Because in the old days, people thought, oh, is it kind of cheesy? Is it like buy now? And everyone panics. It's like he got all the luxury brands into QVC and transformed it. And he was leading this multi-billion-dollar division. And I finally got him on the phone, and I'll never forget, he said, we reviewed your product, it's a no. We don't think you're the right fit for QVC. And I remember, well, first I tried to convince him that we were. And he's like, well, I appreciate, your love for QVC, but it's a no. And I'm like, oh, but no, but, just like on and on and on. And I don't know if you've ever had a no where you just cry yourself to sleep. And, we were down to like no money. I didn't know how we were going to survive. And here's one of the things that I did, because anybody watching right now who is like, if you have an idea or a dream on your heart or something you just can't shake, or this business you've started and you're like, why is it not getting traction? I was in that spot so many times. And the thing that I would do, I mean, in that example, like, if you want me to be really honest, like I cried myself to sleep that night because I didn't know. I'm like, why are these experts that should know, right? They should, like, all the experts are saying that this idea is not going to work. And the thing that I know now that I wish I had known then was, if you're doing something, right, that's never been done before, or if you have an idea and you're doing it differently, like you're doing it your way and it's different than how it's been done before, all the experts are going to say no, or not. They're not. First of all, a lot of experts have never built anything or created anything themselves. That's the first thing. But secondly, there's like, it's never been done before. So there's no social proof out there that sort of like tells them subconsciously your idea is going to work. So they mean well usually, and they're doing the best they can in their job, but it's very hard for people to believe in ideas that have never been done before if they haven't been done before.
Right.
And it's like, I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep with all the no's. But the other thing was I just knew, like, for me, faith's a big deal in my life. And sometimes I would just sit there and I would pray and I'd be like, God, why do I feel in my gut that I'm supposed to be doing this when A, it's really freaking hard, B, I'm barely keeping the lights on, and C, no one's saying yes, right? And it's like, I would get really still and I would just try to listen to that gut feeling. And every time I did that, I knew what I was doing was bigger than myself, and I knew I was supposed to be doing it. And that's how I kept going through all the no's. And so it's a really important thing. Anyone who has a dream or has their own business, you got to check in with your gut, and you got to turn down the volume on all the people who just don't get your dream. And in my case, it was a lot of experts and beauty retailers, but for some of us, it's our inner circle. For some of us, it's like our partner or our family, and we're like, oh, I have this dream and this and that, and they're like, okay, but why aren't you selling anything? Like, you should probably be more responsible. You hear these voices, and when you can really check in with your gut, and if it's what you're supposed to be doing, it's part of your calling, it's part of your purpose, then you have to learn how to love all those people from a distance. But when it comes to talking about your dream, like, turn down the volume, like, don't give them your microphone. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they just don't get it. And they will one day.
Right.
I will tell you this. when it's a huge success, then then they'll be like, I believed in you from the beginning. And so that'll happen too. But those would be two things I would say that are easy ways to get through all the no's, because no's are hard. They really
suck. We're going to have to do one of these episodes where it's just me and you for like an hour or two straight, because there's so many things to ask you. All right, we only have 2 minutes left. So I'd like to ask you,
oh gosh,
if you had to share a recipe for your success, what would it be?
I would say 3 things are big, and I would say these are universal. Whether you're someone who's an entrepreneur or you are somebody who just really wants to move up in your relationships or in your career. Because here's the thing, I think with social media right now, it's super easy to look out there and think things are easy, or they must just happen to other people, right? Or you need to come from the right family, or you need to have all these connections. And none of those were true in my case. And what I've learned, so I would say 3 things about the recipe for success. The first thing is just be ready to work really freaking hard, because I have seen a lot of brand founders in the beauty space, in every space, right? When you're backstage at QVC, you meet thousands of vendors. They have everyone there, from Apple, iPhone to Dyson. I mean, you see every company. And I've been so blessed to meet so many founders of so many brands. And here's what I know to be true. Sometimes there are companies that launch, and sometimes right away the press loves them, or they have a lot of connections, so you see them everywhere and it looks like it's easy. But I've never seen anybody build something that matters and build something that actually lasts without working really, really hard. And sometimes when you see social media, it doesn't look like that's the case. But everything we see online basically has a filter. And I would just say, really be ready to work really hard, and don't put your ego above things like staying cash flow positive, above things like discipline, above things like being willing to do all the unglamorous stuff that doesn't look so good on social. Those disciplines are how we stay cash flow positive for so many years before we were actually making money. And so I would say that, be ready to work really, really hard. And the other thing is, just don't give up. Like, that's the thing, is like, so many people quit or give up because it's hard or it's too hard. And I feel like it's so simple, but it's one of the biggest differentiators between people that actually make it. But I do think working hard, not giving up, is just like base level price of admission. Like, that's like the entry level price of admission. The biggest thing, I think, and it's the hardest thing, but it's the most important thing, is figuring out how to believe that you can, right? Because here's the thing, like, I think self-doubt kills more dreams than anything, right? At all. And it's like, it's like there were so many times where if someone said, you're going to build $1 billion company, and all of these things are going to happen. Sometimes we think like we want to believe in ourselves, but it's hard to when all the people are telling us no, right? And I just remember there was a moment in this journey where it was like so many no's and so much doubt in my head. And I just made this decision to believe that I could. Like I was like, I'm going to build like one of the biggest brands in the world. I'm going to change millions of people's lives. Here's the why I have. And it was a why that resonated with every employee. It was a why that was bigger than myself. And I think that's the thing. It's like so many people, they're like, how did you start your living room and build $1 billion company? And it's like, yeah, I worked really hard. I didn't quit. But the biggest thing I did was I made that decision no matter what to believe that I could. And I think that's the biggest thing. And so for anyone watching who's like trying to get over that hurdle and you need to know where to focus, yeah, you got to work hard. You don't quit. But I would really take a deep dive into learning all the tools to how to just believe that you can and tune out everyone else who's not aligned and not supporting you in that journey. That to me is the most important thing.
So you guys can see this is why I could talk to Jamie for hours and hours. Please make sure to go.
I talk to you for, I think our first call, didn't we talk for a couple hours?
We did.
And I'm like,
yes. So
I know, it's so great to talk with you. I love that you're doing this, by the way, Dan. Thank you and I love everyone on this tonight and in the comments, because like we're all in this together. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like building anything is hard, but we're all in this together. So I think it's a blessing to be able to share like the good stuff, the hard stuff, all that. So thank you.
So make sure everyone go follow her on Instagram. It's at JamieKernLima. We'll put it inside the comments and captions as well, but it's at JamieKernLima. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm sure I'm going to ask you to come back very soon.
Yes, see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
All right, our next speaker, he is, this is going to be a fun one. It's like the future, right? Let me explain what I mean. He's literally building the future for us right now. The last half a decade, he's been working on a company called Nikola Motors. Last year, after an investment, it valued the company at over $3.3 billion. What he's trying to do, I can't explain because it's way too scientific and futuristic for me. So I'm just going to bring him out here. Please welcome Mr. Trevor Milton.
Hey guys, how you doing?
How's it going? Pleasure. Could you please explain the story because I just can't do it justice.
First of all, I want to say I love Jamie. Never met her before. Didn't know anything about her, and she's an awesome lady. That story is almost identical with everyone I've ever met that has really gone big. It is, you're down, you have nothing left. You've almost given up. You're almost to the point of self-doubt. You know, you're hanging on by a thread. You've used all your money. You have almost no more hope. And then, you know, by some miraculous miracle of never giving up, the story is so similar. You're able to pull out and able to make it. And it was almost exactly like that with our story as well. This is my 5th company. That's what people don't know.
Yeah.
My 5th company. 3 were successes, 2 were failures financially. I got my butt kicked, and it's very few people have ever done it 5 times. So if you ever worry like, oh my gosh, I lost everything, I've done this. Guess what? I've done it twice. I've lost my house, my credit, my cars, everything I ever owned. I had to sell it all in order to start the next thing. I had nothing left when I was done,
wow.
Including my credit, which was the worst feeling. And you just can't. I love her. You cannot give up. That's exactly what it is. And some people that's never given up on one company. For me, I had to pivot after failures and I've done it 5 times. And this one obviously was my biggest one. I built a company called Nikola Motor Company, and we designed. My main goal was really to have the greatest effect in the world on cool technology, zero emission technology, health of people and their families and their pets. I'm a huge pet owner as well, and I'll get into that in a minute. But what does this company do? Is we build big semi trucks, those humongous semi trucks. We build them, and we build them with either battery electric, kind of like a Tesla in a huge semi truck, or a hydrogen electric, which is used for the long haul, the stuff that you move a lot of miles, really lightweight. Because you have big loads. So we built the first ever zero emission semi truck. We racked up billions of dollars. When we launched this thing, I spent years building the company before we launched it. When we launched it in 2016, to the fanfare of the world, it was very difficult. We knocked it out of the park. We had billions of dollars in orders come in. And today we're sitting on well over $10 billion in pre-orders for our truck reservations right now. 10 billion, sold out for many years. We're less than 3 weeks away from going publicly listed on the NASDAQ. I could never be more, I cannot believe what's happened. Gone from like getting my butt kicked so hard so many times in life to all of a sudden to here where, as of right now, it's going to go out. If it went today, it would be $5, $6, $7 billion valuation on the NASDAQ right now. So that's how much interest is out there. It's been really awesome.
It's so crazy. So you have 14,000 trucks were pre-ordered. That's crazy. Like, can you tell us, those are expensive trucks. These are like $350,000 trucks, right? I mean, these are big boys.
Yeah, look, I knew from day one the most valuable asset to us would not be selling vehicles. There's very little money in actually making vehicles. People don't know that. The real money is in the energy. It's kind of like a cell phone. When you buy a cell phone for Verizon doesn't make money on like the Nokia, or whatever, or the Google phone or whatever. They make money on the data. The data is where all the money is. And in the trucking world, the energy or the fuel is where all the money is. So when you buy a diesel truck, let's say you spend $150,000 for that diesel truck right now in America, you'll spend about $1 million on fuel over the lifetime of that truck.
Whoa.
So BP and Shell and all these oil companies are just laughing their asses off as they're like, oh, the best salesman in the world is Peterbilt or Volvo for them, because they sit back and they make $750,000 to $1 million, $750,000 to $1 million on every truck sold, and they don't even have to sell it. They don't even have to build it. They don't even have to repair it. So I knew going into this, number one, you're not going to make much money in the trucking, but you can make a killer amount of money on all the energy. So we built this ecosystem. We're the first group in the world to do this, where when you buy a truck from us, all your hydrogen fuel or your energy is totally included in that model. Just like a phone, Verizon, your data is included. So when you buy our truck, you pay cost per mile, and that's all you do. That's it. So it's just cost per mile. You drive, you save a ton of money, you're running zero emission, and you're 20 to 30% less to operate than a diesel. And that's game over in the trucking world.
That is so crazy. All right, but Anheuser-Busch, they also wanted to buy a bunch of the trucks from you, or at least some trucks from you. Can you explain why would somebody like Anheuser-Busch want those?
Yeah, it's really cool. So what a lot of you guys don't know from me is I used to live in Brazil when I was a kid. So when I was younger, I lived in Brazil. I did a service mission, and I went and taught people English and hope and religion and everything. It was just like, for me, my family really wanted me to learn to focus on something but myself. And I went and I lived in Brazil, and so I speak Portuguese fluently. Tudo bem, cara? So anyone out there that speaks Portuguese, I'm a fan of that culture. Anheuser-Busch is actually Brazilian, and it was a really cool story, because when we walked into Anheuser-Busch, they reached out and they said, look, we want to go zero emission for all of our beer. Everything we do, we want to go zero emission, but we can't do it right now because it's too expensive or it's too heavy. But we heard you guys may, boa noite do Rio de Janeiro. Cool, the guy over there. Lots of Brazilians on here. Muito bem. So what was really cool is Anheuser-Busch said, can you help us solve this? We heard you can. And we said, yes, absolutely, we can. Our trucks actually weigh less than a diesel, which is the first time a zero emission truck can weigh less than a diesel truck, or equal to. And so we went in there and had a lot of fun with them. We spent a while going over this. And it wasn't until their CFO came in, who's a Brazilian, and he was like, I want to know if this kid is actually honest or if he's full of crap. And he started speaking Portuguese with me, and he was like, I can't believe it. He's like, you're an American and you speak Portuguese, like without even a sotaque, like you could speak it great. Like, what's wrong? Who are you? And we just hit it off. And Anheuser-Busch ordered $800 million worth of truck leases from us. So they pay us every single mile. And we're getting ready to deliver. We start delivering next year. We're going to be the first OEM in the world with a fully productionized Class 8 zero emission truck. It comes off the assembly line middle next year. So we're beating Tesla, we're beating Volvo, we're beating Daimler, we're beating everybody. And it's because I started on this back in 2014, way ahead of everybody else. So it does not happen fast. Jamie said that. Nothing happens fast. If you want to really take a big gamble and do well in your life, if you don't dedicate 10 years, kiss it goodbye. Don't even start it. 1% of all entrepreneurs that make it will ever make it in under 10 years. It never happens. So people think that, you just struck it rich, you got it so easy. They have no clue. It's a 10-year, it's like a PhD, a double PhD. And if you're not willing to dedicate it, don't go into surgery.
I love that. Yeah, it's a 10-year overnight success story. So
Yeah.
you also have another vehicle, a special edition version coming out with Heavy D Sparks. One of our mutual friends is on a big TV show called The Diesel Brothers. Tell us about that partnership.
Yeah, so one of my good friends is Dave Sparks. He built this TV series called The Diesel Brothers, worldwide phenomenon, really cool guy. He's also a pilot. I'm a pilot. We love flying. We hang out all the time, and he's a great guy. So he's the biggest diesel fan in the world, and I had to convert him over from diesel to electric hydrogen. It was a blast. So I looked at everything out there. We built all this technology for these semi trucks, and we have billions of dollars in tech that went into these semi trucks. And I was frustrated because I looked at all these tiny little pickup trucks that people were building with electric, and I'm like, man, they're not even a real truck. I mean, I grew up in a pretty small town. I lived in this little town called Kanab, Utah for a while, and it's only got like 7,000 people. So my teenage years were spent, out in the middle of the nowhere.
Right.
I mean, out in the desert, up in the mountains. I broke multiple trucks. I have trucks stuck out in the middle of nowhere. We just left there because it wasn't even worth enough money to tow it home. So like, I'm a true truck owner, and I looked at these electric trucks coming out, and I'm like, these are abomination of like, of what a truck is really about. And the Ford F-150 was the best truck ever built for business. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to build the best electric and hydrogen pickup truck that the world has ever seen, because no one's ever done it before, really. And the reason why we went electric and hydrogen is two reasons. So one, this truck is very similar to what like a Ford Raptor, but it's all electric. So you can order it with battery electric only, and it'll give about 400 miles. And then you can add on a fuel cell to it that'll give another 400 miles. So you can get up to, 600 to 800 miles on a single charge. And not everyone needs a fuel cell. It's for everyone that is going to run, trailers or heavy loads or long distances. But if you're only going around town, you can live with the battery electric. So we built this pickup truck. My good friend Dave Sparks was kind of talking to me in the early stages, and he's like, Trevor, I really want to. This is amazing. I want to help you because they love building these big custom diesels. And he's like, I can help you make this thing a better truck than what you even do. And you're a truck fanatic. So we came together, and in less than 6 months right now, I will be showing off the very close to a pre-production truck, completely done. It's like even further ahead than Rivian. Like, I mean, it's badass. It's got everything, powered seats, windows, sunroofs, I mean, full metal panels, everything. It's not just a prototype. It's a real amazing truck. And we're going to be showing it off in about 6 months from now. And that's when the reservations will open. And I imagine right now, according to the traction that we have, we're probably looking at tens of billions, I hope, in reservations for that truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
So funny story, the last 5 years, I haven't owned a car because I Uber everywhere. The only car I got is for my wife is the Ford Raptor. And when we saw Heavy D posting with you about the announcement for that car, I was like, that's our next car. I don't really buy cars, but that's the car. And that's how I first got it. I first got to see it.
And it's gorgeous. Look, you guys can go to nikolamotor.com and you can go look at all of our products. We have these heavy duty semi trucks. And then we got this pickup truck called the Nikola Badger. And then we have these off-road vehicles too that are like all made for off-road. So like if anyone's ever driven a Polaris Razor out in the desert, it's very similar to that thing, but it's all electric, and it's insane. And I just build shit I love to do. If I'm not inspired, you will fail. I tell people this all the time. Your inspiration's got to bleed out, like just got to perforate from you, or you won't make it.
You have a jet ski also, right?
Huh?
You guys are also creating a jet ski?
Yeah, we built an electric jet ski, an electric UTV, off-road vehicle, and the Badger and the big semi truck. So we got this whole portfolio line coming out. And it's like I get to work in the funnest stuff I've ever imagined in my whole life. And I'm just really lucky to do it.
So quick fun story. So when you were a kid in elementary school, your dad loaned you $20 to start selling candy. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I hate school. I'm like the most anti-school guy you'll ever meet. And a lot of my friends don't like me for that because they're very educated and they just despise people that never went to school. So it's kind of a fun conversation that there are some people that can make it that have never been to anything. I dropped out of high school. I didn't even graduate. I had to go back and get my PhD. When I was young, my mind never worked like they taught in books. I don't learn from books. I have to learn from hands-on. So if you give me something to build, I'll do it.
Right.
But if you give me instructions, I could never do it. It's not how it works for me. I have to touch something. I have to feel it. And I have to, what I tell people is you have to see the different ways things connect, and then it becomes natural to you. If you learn it in a book, you have one connection. There was this book called The Memory Book, and it was written by one of the most brilliant geniuses in the world. I only made it like a quarter of the way through this thing because I don't like reading books. But this guy talked about, in order to remember anything, you need to associate it with three things. And that was like, for me, I was young. I was like, oh my gosh. Now, if I associate with something with three things, so whenever I hear someone's name, I'll think of three different people that have the same name, and bam, I'll remember them forever. And that was my way of of learning. And so when I was young, I didn't do good in school, and I was distracted. I told my dad, I want $20. He's like, why do you want $20? You know, what do you need it for? And I was young. I think I was in fourth grade, right? I mean, super young. And I said, well, lunch is $2. Parents give kids $2 and lunch is $1.25. So when the kids went to elementary school, they would get 75 cents back from the cafeteria. And I was like, these kids just don't, they just go to these vending machines and they just spend it on crap. And I said, Dad, I want to replace those vending machines. I want to make all that money for myself instead of school making it or some vendor. So that back then they used to have 20 for $1 Almond Joys and Twixes, the tiny little bite size. They were 20 for $1 when I was a kid. And so I asked him for a $20 loan, and he says, I'll do it. And he says, so, it's going to be 7 to 10% interest, depends on when you pay it back. So I was like, my dad, it was my first time learning about what interest was. And I was like, what does that mean? And he says, well, if you take $10 and over a period of a year, you don't pay it back, 10% is going to be, 10% of that. So that's how much you're going to owe me on top of that. So you better make more profit than that or you'll lose money. So that was my first thing. I ended up selling each piece for 25 cents, and they were costing me 5 cents a piece.
Oh yeah.
So just
crushing it.
Margins were huge,
Yeah.
like best margins in the world.
Yeah.
And I ended up, tons of money, hundreds of dollars just coming in, over thousands. And I was like, and then the principal called me in and wanted to kick me out of school. And that was the day my dad became my best friend. From that time, my dad's been my biggest champion my whole life. He told the principal essentially, kiss it. This is exactly why kids are in school. And if you're going to penalize a kid for doing exactly what we're trying to teach them, understand how to balance a budget, how to understand what money is, how to balance that, how to make money, how to make margin, and how to provide a better option to people that need it. Like, why would you ever penalize a kid? And they wanted to throw me out of school. And my mom and my dad were my biggest champions. And that was the beginning of everything for me. I never just stopped. It just went on and on and on. So
quick side note, today, it's Mother's Day. My mom was my investor, and I used to sell candy in school, and the teachers would sell it for me. I had a box there, and every Friday I would pick up the money from them. So I'd pick up $20, $30 from them, and I got to pay them in candy bars. I never gave them any money. That was their commission. So I actually talked about that story today. That's why it was so fun to see that. So fast forward 20 years later, instead of raising $20, you've raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars recently. Can you tell us the difference of $20 and raising hundreds of millions of dollars?
Crazy. Over $1 billion now.
Oh my God. Isn't that weird to say?
Well, at this IPO, so right now we're reverse merging with a company right now. So there's this company set up. It's called VTIQ, Vector IQ. They're only a holding company. They're created to expedite the IPO process. So we got in touch with one of the former heads of General Motors. His name's Steve Gursky. He approached us and said, look, we want to reverse merge with you. I want to help you guys take you guys public. And it's going to be cheaper, and it's going to be better, and it's going to be faster. And those are those are things that I love. You can tell me cheaper, faster, better. I'm like, what?
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, you got my attention. So, and he went over this whole thing with me. And so we spent the last 6 months going through all the approvals, getting our S4s filed, S8s, everything done. And we have now passed all of our rounds of comments. We're essentially, right now, we anticipate having the merger completely finalized by the first week of June. So it'll change, anyone who owns Vector IQ shares, VTIQ on the NASDAQ, automatically converts over to Nikola shares in KLA at the merger. So when someone buys one of those shares, they don't have to do anything. It automatically happens. And right now, the company's valued at $3.3 billion at $10 on the merger. And right now the stock's trading at I think around 16 or 17 or $18, depends on the day. So if it goes up to 20, that's a $6.6 billion company we've created. If it goes up to 30, that's a $9.9 billion company. And right now it just looks like it's just been incredible success going up. And in this IPO, the special merger company had $235 million. That's how they attract you. And then we're one of the, I think probably the most successful mergers in history with what they call a SPAC, special acquisition. Not only did we bring in the 235 million from the SPAC, but we brought in an additional $500+ million from the largest investment firms in the world. It was sold out. Literally, like the Fidelity led it with PSAM, BlackRock. You look at Norge, all these groups they all came in, they invested, and we actually oversold it. We had to kind of trim it down, and so that's like 700 million-ish, and we've already raised like 400 million. That'll be over $1 billion raised now.
Oh my gosh. All right, so you've built an all-star team of executives around you. How do you attract people to join you in your vision? Since your vision is this long-term thing to change the world, how do you inspire people to join you for this long ride?
So as an entrepreneur, you have to understand something. There's multiple stages of things that happen in life, and they never happen at the same time. They never happen. It's almost like falling in love with someone, right? Or whatever. Like it doesn't happen all at once. It happens over a long period of time. And one of the things that I learned is you'll attract visionaries in the beginning. You'll attract people that are following visionaries but want a little less risk, and then you'll attract incredibly talented people later on. I found out that the visionaries are the ones that are usually a little less educated. They're the ones that are more real life experience rather than sitting there with a methodical thinking process on paper. So in the initial phases, everyone I brought on were like visionary engineers, visionary everything. There were guys that were like, just no one would, they're amazing people, but they weren't worldwide known. They were just people that believed in this and they wanted to make a difference in the world. As time went on, we started bringing in the PhDs, the really brilliant people around what they look like, their subject matter. They're the best in the world at it. And so we just, over the last 6-7 years, I've attracted literally probably one of the best teams on the planet Earth. It's so good that there's a company in Europe called, I don't know if you guys, in America, it's called Case New Holland Iveco. So they do like big tractors and semi trucks and agricultural. They're the 5th largest truck manufacturer in Europe with a brand called Iveco. We built such good technology. They flew in to come see us and they said, "You have the best technology we've ever seen in our life. We've never seen anyone create a full vertical integration of a supply chain ever, except for Amazon. You guys are the only ones that have ever figured out how to do this, and it's beautiful. And we want to invest in you." And in case New Holland Iveco put $250 million into Nikola.
Whoa.
Like 6 months ago, right?
250 million?
And 250 million, yeah. And what we did, you'll learn to inspire people, and not just as you gain more and more people over time and you make it. Remember, it takes 10 years. So factor your first 7 years of being hell, and the last 3 years are just fun. So the first few million, like I would say like the first 30 million is harder to raise than the first billion. It is the hardest money you'll ever raise in your life because you're scrutinized. They take advantage of you. They tell you everything you're doing wrong. They don't believe in you. They want to get the best deal they can. Like you're literally dealing with all the cards stacked against you for your first 30 million. It's miserable. And if you can figure out a way to have a lot of little exits and make your own money and then really fund your own thing, that's the best way to do it. But after you raise that, we went from 30 million to 100 million right after that. And then we did 130 million right after that. And then we did $250 million after that. Now we just did $700 to $800 million on a raise. So
unreal.
They just want to know they can trust you. They want to know you can execute and that you can keep focused and that they can trust you. And then you got a product that really sells itself, and that's it.
Execution is everything. Okay, where can people find you and your company on social media or online?
So you can follow me on a couple things. So my I'll actually put it in there. My LakePowellTrevor is my Instagram, and my NikolaTrevor is my is my Twitter. So LakePowellTrevor is my Instagram, NikolaTrevor is my Twitter, and then I also if you guys want 2 amazing articles, go to my LinkedIn. Just search Trevor Milton, CEO of Nikola Motor Company. Go to my LinkedIn. There's 2 articles there you'll absolutely love. It's like what we're doing here times like with all written out. And I wrote about a random airport encounter of an entrepreneur that reached out that I just met in the airport, and unbelievable. He asked me for all the advice I'd give him for starting a company. And the best advice I could ever give anyone in my life is in that article. Awesome. The second one is another one, how to get back up after you had your ass kicked, after you lost everything. you asked, the previous panel yesterday, hey, how do you handle the no's? Oh my gosh, listen, an average person will give up after 3 or 4 no's. A really good person will give up after 30 to 40 no's. The geniuses give up after 50 to 100. You have to have your ass kicked so hard and so long before you finally make it, because it refines you. This is exactly what she said. In a bad market, it causes you to be more creative and it refines you. Jamie, I mean, she's just such a great woman, a great leader for women, a great leader for everybody, entrepreneurs. Like, I'm just so proud of everything she said. I'm just sitting over here. I'm like, yes, I love this lady, this lady, and happy Mother's Day to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trevor.
Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Our next guest is my dear friend. It might be like 9 o'clock at night over there in Florida. Mr. Bobby Castro built up a company worth $1 billion along the way with his positive mental attitude. He also built up a $300 million apartment portfolio. You guys are going to love this guy. Follow him on social media. It's OfficialBobbyCastro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, Mr. Bobby Castro.
Hey, Dan.
How's it going?
Thanks for having me again, man.
Of course.
It's always good to see you and hear your voice. And Trevor, man, I absolutely loved his energy.
Yeah.
I hope a lot of people, I know I'm going to go on LinkedIn and find that article. And Jamie was awesome. So I'm glad to be part of this.
Very excited. Could you give everybody a bit of your story?
Well, a little different than maybe some of the other awesome speakers. I started a company with basically $1,700 and never raised any money, period. No investors, no syndication, nobody. Just pretty much, guys, from little small efforts, slowly compounded. And many years later, exited a company, that same company that I started, for $1 billion, hassle-free terms. Pretty much, it's amazing when I hear some of these other individuals speak, and I was never exposed to all this world. I'm grateful to hear these stories, and I'm so grateful that I had no idea that there was money out there to be given to you, or at least offered to you for your hard work and your talents and your tenacity. But yeah, so I failed at the 3rd grade, just got through the 9th grade, hardworking family, and tremendous amount of struggles. And I always like to tell young people, middle age, old, whatever the case may be, and Trevor hit it right on point. There's stages, guys, in the business world. Everyone wants to be in business. They simply just sometimes don't take that leap of faith. And they all want to get maybe sometimes a little too fancy, which will prevent you from making actual easy decisions. In the beginning, it's very hard. You're just surviving. You're maintaining, surviving. And chances are you're getting out of a situation, a crisis like we're in today, and you're saying, you know what, enough's enough. I might as well start my own business because I was struggling just the same. And I'm glad I made that effort. And throughout the years, I stack and rack. My wife and I, we built up a $350 million multifamily rental portfolio that gives us some nice cash flow, $300,000 to $400,000 every single month. And here I am, man. Anybody can do this. 11 months ago, I sold my business for $1 billion valuation. So if I did it, anybody can do it. But more so, if you're not one of the ones that know a lot of people like I didn't know or don't know how to raise money, you can do this just like I did, just from one day to the next, small compounded efforts.
So what is PMA?
PMA is powerful, man. It's so powerful that it's trademarked. I have a serial number on it. Positive mental attitude. PMA all day, every day. Because of that, I sit here today telling you that I'm worth over $300 million on a personal net worth. It's gotten me through so many struggles, so many huge, dark mistakes. And I simply had to go through this struggle, being positive, manifesting, I'm going to get out of this situation. It's going to get into a better situation. And what happens, guys, it's all about the money in the beginning, because that's survival. That is the purpose. Hey, I want to do better for myself financially. So for me, based on my personal experience, it was all about the money. But then you get to this momentum where it's now about the challenge and creating. And when you're going through this, you have to be very over the top positive. I don't care how over the top you are, 10 times it more. You got to be so extreme with it, as I am, that it's all day, every day. There's not a day that I'm not positive. I am allergic to negativity, because that simply will go ahead and you lose that momentum that you're building, that you're going to, create this momentum to drive you forward. And PMA is positive mental attitude.
So you built up this $350 million apartment portfolio, but you've done it just you and your wife. Most people that build up these type of portfolios, they're taking on investors along the way. Is there a reason that it went that way? Or would you take on investors, or tell us a story about that?
Yeah, so I come, my history is that I never raised money. So during the process of building my wealth, Sophie and I, we simply stacked every penny and we racked them into investments. And, my parents were tenants in affordable housing, workforce housing. And I always wanted to own apartments because the landlord would never stop knocking on the door. I mean, my gosh, we just paid your rent. And he or she's showing up again for the rent. I was just saying, wow, what a great position to be in. And when we started, making our money, I didn't want to really spend the energy of chasing down investors because that could be a full-time job. I learned out throughout the years. I just became good at creating my own destination with my own efforts and the power of a penny. I know a lot of people don't respect the penny, but I can tell you the pennies add up greatly if you stack them correctly and you simply don't get distracted. I have something I call non-refundable minutes. A lot of people invest them and burn them and think that they're refundable. You never get them back. I mean, I am to the point where I'm so obsessed about my pennies, so obsessed about my minutes. I get so much in return, and just was never a dude that just looked for investors. I think that's a full-time job. It's obviously now I'm learning, hearing all these beautiful people since 11 months I've been on social media, and I'm saying, wow, it's a world I never knew.
So you were all in on one company for 10, 15 years, where a lot of people get shiny object syndrome. How did you stay focused on that one core business?
Yeah, 19 years to be exactly, 19 years. And it goes back to those non-refundable minutes. I was so obsessed, Dan, where again, it was all about the money and struggling, maintaining, surviving, going backwards. And then we got through the cycle of the stage of, okay, it's doing good. And we reinvested our dollars back into our business. And I am telling everyone right now, there's so many entrepreneurs, and I wanted to touch on one thing. I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but I think it's so important to remember. I don't care what stage of a business you're in, everybody wants to exit. Wow, man, Bobby exited. He got $1 billion valuation, all cash, no financing, no all this and that, very hassle-free. I want to do the same. You could do the same. And what Bobby did in the beginning, don't get too fancy and try to come with too many crazy strategies because you'll get lost of actually doing nothing. In the beginning, guys, the first few years, it was about survival, maintaining, and then you have to recognize, is my business, my industry, my sector is a scalable business, it's a scalable industry, because valuation is all based on scale. What can a buyer buy you for to go ahead and add value to it? Because the motive is to resell it for more than $1 billion. I could have sold that for 1.4 billion, but the terms were very, very attractive for me. So in the beginning, guys, don't get too fancy with the strategies. Your job is to survive, maintain, and as it's going and building, that is when strategy comes on the second phase. Everyone wants to put too much strategy on the first phase when you're really just trying to survive and maintain.
So in preparation for an exit, there's a lot of legal and accounting that's involved with that people don't ever talk about or realize. Like going public, like Trevor was talking about, sometimes it usually takes 1 to 2 years. A lot of times it takes 2 years of preparation, and through a SPAC deal is able to shorten it by 6 months to a year. In your scenario, when you're exiting a company, it can take 6 months to a year to prepare for that with legal and accounting. Can you talk about some of that behind the scenes?
Yes, I learned many years ago, guys, I used to nickel and dime legal and accounting. And when I stopped nickel and diming it and I started investing in only getting the best, the very best in the beginning, because once you sign documents and contracts, we're so quick as entrepreneurs that it sounds so good and we're moving quickly. And I used to just execute without really getting the right representation. When I knew that the business was being built, because the first slice was $250 million valuation, 30%, $75 million all cash. 11 months later, went up to $600 million valuation for 19% all cash. And then the remaining 3 years later for the $1 billion. Before the $250 million exit, we were already having all our team, our in-house counsel with outside counsel, already preparing ourselves on audited statements, because we understood the value of creating value. Because when you're now going to tee it up to your business, one day is going to be very attractive to the market. You don't want to be behind the eight ball saying, oh my gosh, your accountant's a nightmare, your contracts are a disaster, because what's going to happen, you'll lose time in. And just imagine the corona. If you were involved in the transaction, somebody came, hey, Bobby, here's $1 billion 6 months before corona came. And then I had to get all that stuff in order, which takes at least 18 months alone. I would have missed the timing. So guys, on your second phase, not your first stage, that's when you start getting your legal counsel, your accounting. And it's so important to stack. A lot of us entrepreneurs like Bobby Castro did in the beginning, I did a big mistake. Whatever I earned revenue, I would just pay the basic expenses and then pay myself everything. I was not building or creating. It took me a long time to understand that, because I really didn't have much direction, to be honest with you. I didn't have the internet back then. So legal and accounting, I can't emphasize, do not nickel and dime it. Very important. Before you sign anything, it could be a family member. I've learned this. Get the right representation. Do not go cheap on it.
So 11 months ago, you decided to finally jump into social media and you went full force. Why is it that you're so excited about social media and telling your story and getting that PMA out there? And why are you looking to find those future Bobby Castros? What?
Yeah, so when I sold the company, it was like my child. I was so emotionally in a bad spot, because I'm used to going, dude, 120 miles per hour down to 20 miles per hour, and you could fall off a cliff and fall into depression. My son recognized it. I have a beautiful son, Brandon, 23 years old. He said, Dad, you give so much value to all my friends and everyone when they're asking you questions about their business. Can I get you on social media? Because I think it's going to help you and you can help others. Oh, Brandon, I don't know. Because I wasn't familiar with social media. So I agreed to it. I said, Brandon, only 6 months. Well, here I am 10 months later, and I'm all about giving value, expecting nothing in return. I don't want nothing from anybody. And along the way, I have met a lot of awesome Bobby Castros that I recognize. I can see them right. I can see it clearly. And so far, I think I'm a little bit over $3 million in investments on people I've met on social media that I got to know. They got to know me. I got to know their character, their model. Is it scalable? And so I'm on social media really for some selfishness of helping me get through this process. I'm already through the process. I'm still here because I get so many like buttons. So many people, and I respond to everyone. I've gotten people about to commit suicide, health issues, just really down and out in life, losing their businesses. And when you're able to lift somebody up for a little bit, man, it gets me excited, give that value, because I feel it. I was there once, and here I am still doing it. I'm expecting nothing from social media, Dan. I think it's good and bad. It's a major distraction if you leverage it, incorrectly with the wrong type of content, or you can leverage it correctly. So I don't know how long I'm going to continue doing this. I have a lot of investments. I'm definitely 2021 is going to be a busy year for me. So I don't know what direction I'm going to go to, but I'm so happy to, right now I just want to help some other entrepreneurs. Just reminders. That's all I'm giving.
So how do you choose who those next Bobby Castros are? You can just feel it right away. Is it gut instinct?
There's one individual that this guy, Jeff, you can see it's obsessed. You can see a lot of the stuff behind the scenes. You can locate, when you're in a horse race, a horse does not race by itself without a jockey. And the jockey is the captain of the ship. The jockey is the true leader, the direction where this horse is going to go, how slow, how fast. So I look for the entrepreneurs. Do they have the thick skin? Is their business, their industry scalable? Does it have a lot of scale? Can you add a lot of value to it to increase a lot of valuation? So I look at the jockey most importantly. Then I look, is it scalable? So those are the two most important things to me. Do they get distracted? Are they totally obsessed? Do they have good people skills? Are they all about just spending money and not stacking and racking and creating value? Do they understand the value proposition? And I'm so shocked to find out there's a lot of young people that have those traits. And I thought it was the only one. I am shocked.
Let's actually do a quick giveaway. Bobby and I both invested into a company called Everbowl. You guys can see it on everbowl.com. They have 28 locations on the West Coast of acai bowl, and they pivoted. And that's what Bobby's talking about. This founder The second that the quarantine happened, he pivoted. He has got 400 employees. He figured out a way to ship these acai bowls with dry ice directly to people's homes. And then boom, got a deal with QVC, got a deal to go out and ship out nationwide. Bada bing, bada boom. Instead of him sitting on the floor and crying about it, he's pivoted and he's already gotten so many orders around the country because people like to have acai in their homes and less people are going out to eat right now, so it's a great time. So we're gonna pick out 5 winners right now that are actually gonna get these acai bowls delivered to their homes. So I don't want you to put your addresses or phone numbers in the comments. So what you'll do is you're gonna email winner@100millionacademy.com. Email winner@100millionacademy.com. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it after the show's over. But email let's come up with something. All right, how many months has Bobby Castro been on social media? Email the number of how many months has Bobby Castro been on social media. There's only 12 options, between 1 and 12 months. How many months has he been on social media? And then put in your name, address, and phone number if you win, or you can just put in the number and we'll respond to you to get your name, address, and phone number. We're gonna pick 5 winners and we're gonna ship you a full case of these acai bowls. I think there's 7 or 14 in a box. Okay. All right, so we got a few minutes left. Let's ask the next question. All right, so your wife worked.
And
go ahead.
One thing I want to mention, Dan, Jeff from Everbowl, and people skills. Jeff has all the traits, but more importantly, he has the people skills. And when you have people skills, you can lead. And that is so important. So remember, everybody, if you're in business, man, ego's not your amigo. Do not ignore people skills, because if Jeff didn't have the right people skills with me, he had everything else. But as a true leader, you look for the people skills. Does he have a way to create a culture, move the needle? So don't forget that. I wanted to throw that in there.
So your wife works closely with you. How do you manage that work-love relationship after 20 plus years?
Dude, we love it. 30 years, October 6th, this year we'll be married,
Amazing.
Sophie and I. We were very young. I mean, Sophie was a mom at 19 years old with Priscilla, who will be 29 years old. For me, what worked for Bobby and Sophie, we are so extreme entrepreneurs that there's no question about it. When you're at work, guys, and you're fighting on the front lines, you're bringing it home. And if you don't get your circle, your core values at home to understand that this is a business, regardless whether you like it or not, based on my experience, you bring it home. And from home, you take it to work. So they're both connected and they're related. And Sophie and I caught on to it by mistake throughout the years through a tremendous amount of challenges in our marriage, in our lives. And then we started feeding off each other and we understood the compound leverage effect. And we continue fertilizing our relationship. I love my wife dearly. I find her so freaking sexy every day. And we get rewarded every day. And if you fertilize that relationship and you just throw her a good tennis ball, she throws it back, and you guys are just jiving, you'll be surprised how that crap turns on to some powerful stuff. So, quick real estate question. If someone was to purchase a duplex or a fourplex and live in one of the units, do you like that as a first investment for someone to get started? Yes, I'm a big believer, starting small, absolutely. Bobby Castro started big. I fell on my face. I lost millions of dollars. I love the idea. I recommend to everybody, start small, start very small, because you're going to learn all the good, bad, and ugly. I love the idea, yes. So there's going to be discounts on real estate in certain areas this summer. Should people be jumping on those or waiting longer to see where things shake out this year? Well, I just bought, I think it's just like under $50 million, but it was a deal that was in the works and it was a great price point. Bobby Castro and Sophia Castro will be looking aggressively the first quarter of next year. What I tell my son, my daughter, my son-in-law, do not buy anything now, stack, earn as much as you can, and you rack down the road. When the relief goes away, real estate's always a lag. The equity stock market's real time. When all the relief, all the stimulation goes away, value will surface. And Warren Buffett says it best. When the tide goes out, guys, you will find out who's been swimming naked. Be patient. In the meantime, your job is to rack It's the same as investing into information that costs you $0. So when you're ready to strike, you can recognize an opportunity, but just don't fart out and do nothing now. You can rack into free information on this internet. Google is powerful.
That's actually the question I was going to ask you. How can people keep PMA when there's so much bad news and crazy things and crazy that? What should they be listening to and following along with to not have all that noise?
So your minutes are simply non-refundable. Bobby is never around anything negative. I don't look at the news, anything negative, because it can contaminate your mind, period. So you have to really, if you're on Instagram, you're on social media, who are you following? Forget about me. I don't do this for a living, but the information you put in this mind, you're plugging it in there. And if you're plugging in wasted information, looking at a Ferrari, that there's nothing by looking at a Ferrari is going to give you any strategy, any information. So you got to be around total positive energy. That means family members, man. Sensitivity issue with family. I know I come from a big family. So a lot of family has a lot of passion, but sometimes it's negative. And if you swim around it, man, it's like a crab bucket. Throw a bunch of crabs in a bucket. One tries to get out. The other ones pull it down. Go on YouTube. You can see it. So you got to massive change. That's what Bobby did. I massively got out of my environment because I was around the same information everyone already had, and we were all stuck. So unless you're ready, truly ready, if you're tired and you're exhausted, you've got to beat up in life and you're down and out, this is the time to pivot. This is you're knocking on the door. This is the time for massive, urgent change, and you'll find the positivity, because right now it's all negative.
So we have 60 seconds left. I have a very, very important question for you. Ready?
Yep.
What is the meaning of life?
Kindness. I'm all about it. It's so powerful. You have no idea how it's impacted my life financially, emotionally. Being kind. We're all born. This is what at least I believe. We were all born. You see a child, they're so sweet and kind, but we grow up with a little leather. We start changing. Just kindness, man. I'm here for a moment in time. I want to be kind. And guess what? If you're in sales and you're in business, you're kind, but you know your product service, you'll never get a no. Kindness is powerful, man. So that's a word I call that.
So where can people find you on social media and find your whole world?
Instagram is OfficialBobbyCastro. There's a website my son created, BobbyCastro.com. I'm on Facebook. And again, guys, I don't know how long I'm going to do this. The only reason I'm still here, man, I keep getting these hearts. And it's amazing how, I don't know about you, Dan, but when people are behind the screen, they're so transparent with their issues, and they ask some really raw, transparent questions. But when you're in front of them, they don't really so transparent. And I fall in love with these people because I know I am making an impact, and incredible some stuff. And I'm going to do it as long as I still stay in love. I just don't know about my time capacity, but I'm excited about the investments I'm doing with you, though, for sure. Even
if you just dial it down a little bit, don't leave us. We need you on social media. You're one of the most impactful, exciting people to watch on social. It's so great to see. Hopefully you don't fully leave us. At least give us a little bit each week. All right.
Thank you, my brother.
You guys have been watching Bobby Castro. Make sure to follow him on Instagram at OfficialBobbyCastro. Learn from him. Watch his videos on Instagram stories. They're really exciting each day. It gets me pumped up. Thank you again. Talk to you soon.
Much love, everybody. PMA.
All right. Our next guest, dear friend. We hosted our Instagram Live together recently. We're going to do it again because it was too good. Cindy sold her first company for hundreds of millions of dollars, but we all talk about the $1 billion exit. Hold on. Ready for this? And then she bought the company back. There's just too many things. Let's just bring Cindy on and we'll just dive right in. I have so many questions for her. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Cindy Eckert.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Fantastic. All right.
Now listen.
Okay.
I didn't buy it back. I got it back for nothing, and I kept the $1 billion. And now I use it to invest in other female founders. We got to set the record straight.
All right, I'm going to leave. I'm just going to let you host the show. That was too good. You take care.
No, wait, actually, I'm
so
going to
good.
top it. I didn't only get it back. I made them give me a $25 million loan, so they actually paid me to take it back in the end. And we're going to talk about how you sell a company and you write a contract that way so that you have all of the leverage, people, if things don't go the way you expect.
So good. Okay, how did you get into this field?
You know, I started, like, I had a very classic corporate life at the beginning. Like, I was classic. I got out of college. I went to work at, Fortune's most admired company. And I thought, oh, if I go to work for Fortune's most admired company, I can take that with me anywhere. And I was stuck in, like, classic corporate, hitting the ceiling. And so when I just kept hitting my head into the ceiling, I decided to build my own house. And I had enough track record in healthcare, in a pharmaceutical industry, that I built my own pharmaceutical company, which was freaking crazy because I didn't have enough gray hair for anybody to bet on me. I didn't have any rich uncle or anybody in my contact list who was going to write me a check. I did hit up my two big brothers, who, by the way, didn't have money themselves, but they gave me a little bit of money. And now I like to, rib them a little bit that they're lucky I'm their little sister. But it's and you can do it. Like, if you are crazy enough, basically the brave enough to take this risk, I'm living proof that without any contacts or any money of my own, maxing out all the credit cards, you really can start it from scratch.
So there's so many questions. Like, how do you do it all? Like, how does this happen?
I mean, really and truly, I made a decision that I was sick of creating value for other people when I should be creating value for myself. I'm all about collaboration, win-win, absolutely. But I was busting my ass and they were putting the money in their pocket. And so really, I went out and I thought, I can find a product that I would be able to put, real heart behind. And the equation for me, honestly, was people. And I'll tell you what I mean. Like, culture came first. I was in environments in which I was successful. I'm very driven, competitive. I was succeeding, but I was totally uninspired. So my hypothesis was, okay, what if I went out, I found a product I could get excited about. I built a team. I handpicked people who, like me, were in environments where they were succeeding, but they hated it. Like, they weren't excited every morning, tearing the sheets off. I put them all together and put them against a really specific mission. Would we be successful? And honestly, I named the company Slate. Clean slate, on my own terms. Here's what I'm going to do. And lo and behold, we were wildly successful. I mean, it was a crazy ride. Now, by the way, the ride did not look like this. It looked like that.
Right.
Like all
roller
of the
coaster.
fits and starts and hardship, when you building it from scratch. I made so many mistakes. I screwed up every single day. But you know what? It was my damn mess. And I got to clean it up. I wasn't cleaning up other people's messes. And that was really such a crazy part of the ride. And then I get the company to the point where we're, printing money. We're wildly successful, but true entrepreneur, I saw this other idea. My first company had a product for male sexual dysfunction. You guys haven't turned on TV or radio for 20 years and not heard a commercial for one of these kind of products, but you still to this day probably haven't heard one for women. So I'm building this business in men. I see an opportunity in women, and I take this successful business, turn to my shareholders and say, hey, guess what? Like, I'm getting rid of it and I'm going for this one. You thought I was crazy.
It sounds crazy.
It's crazy.
Right? It sounds crazy.
A little bit of crazy, or like a chip on your shoulder is good for entrepreneurs.
So what made you want to create the female Viagra, and how did you get it FDA approved? Like, this is a huge undertaking to go through. I don't know if people realize in the biotech space, it can take 3 to 7 years before you actually even just get started, before they approve anything.
Yeah.
Like, then it's like the starting ground. So it's just like years and years and years just to get to the starting line, not even like the finish line. Can you explain a bit?
Oh, if you go back on the science of this drug, you're dialing it back over a decade.
Oh my gosh.
And the reason I did it is exactly what everybody who's here watching. It's the mark, I think, of incredible entrepreneurs, self-starters, is that you see possibility where other people see limitation. And I was running a business with one of 26. There were 26 FDA approved treatments for some form of male sexual dysfunction. I had a company with one of the 26, but not a single one for women. Ridiculous. Of course, women want help in the bedroom as well, just like guys, but the societal narrative really doesn't sort of support this idea of, women getting equal consideration. And that just ignited me. So like I said, I was crazy enough to sell off the profitable business, go back down to zero, turn around to my shareholders, say to them, hey, I made you some money, now give it back.
Right, let's do it again.
We're gonna go again.
Right.
And thank God they really did believe in me, what I was capable of building, and they gave me money. And that road was wild. And I'll just tell everybody out there who has gone out, to pitch a kind of conventional investor, you've gotten laughed out of the room, you've gotten the door, slammed in your face. That was me. After I built a successful business, when I wanted to go out and build for the female Viagra, and I'm showing up in hot pink, and there's a bunch of, guys in blue and gray suits, like sitting there listening to my pitch, they were laughing me out of the room. But what is your curse sometimes, or what feels like that, is often your blessing. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. Because that path was not available to me, I had to go get money from private individuals, from family offices, from angel investors. And thank God I did, because when I hit all of those road bumps, they weren't only invested in, the bottom line of the money they would take out of it, but they were invested in the mission that I was on, and they hung with me through it all.
So you got international press over this thing. I mean, this was wild. I saw you on every major publication and TV network on the planet. Like, how did you handle this whirlwind of going from being in your pink lab coat working away to all of a sudden you're all over the planet?
You know what? It's so funny. I'm taking nothing away. It was an insane week. So we fought. It took me 6 years to get through the FDA. It typically takes about a year. So just for context, that's just how crazy this particular ride was. I got to tell you, when you take on the government for female sexual pleasure, it's not exactly a straight line. But when I got the approval for the drug, and 2 days later, I sold the business for $1 billion. And in that week, like Dan said, we were the biggest news story in the world the day that we broke through. It was everywhere. I went up, I did press in New York. I went to bed. I woke up 2 days later and I did press for selling it for $1 billion. But the truth is, I came home from New York that week and I went to work. And I think that's what you'll find is, once you are a builder of things, you love that process. Whatever the outcome is, I have more zeros in my bank account than I would have imagined as a little girl. But I still wake up every day and I do the work, because in no way do I ever feel like I'm done with everything I've set out to, I want to accomplish in this world. What a boring day it would be tomorrow if I woke up and thought I knew everything. And I've done everything. No way.
That actually leads me to my next question. You actually kind of explained it. You have a saying that's be the workhorse, not the unicorn. So you had this unicorn exit.
Yes.
You had this unicorn exit. You're worth $1 billion. And then boom, you're back in the office. Explain that.
I got to tell you, I got to do Tim Ferriss. If anybody follows him, I was on his podcast, and he often asks a question of, if you could put any billboard up, what would you put up? And I said to him, can I choose where it goes? And he said, sure. So I said, okay, right outside of Silicon Valley, where all the kind of the classic money is, that laughed at me and didn't write me a check. I said I would put up, I'll do a bleep, like F the unicorn, be the workhorse. And I think that's so fundamentally true, especially right now when we watch so many shows, the Shark Tanks of the world and everything else show funding as the destination. Funding isn't the destination. Funding is the moment that terror should strike in your heart, because now you've got to actually pay that investor back and then some. But it's really like we've gotten to a place in entrepreneurship, I think, where sometimes we declare the greatness, like I'm the next unicorn, when what you really need to do is put your head down, do the damn work. And if you'll just do that, all of that will come. For all of the folks that I've seen, and all the folks that Dan, surrounds himself with, they are busting it every single day. Nobody's sitting on the beach drinking the drinks. It's not that they can't, it's not that they can't, and they don't deserve to when they want to, but they're really waking up every day and putting the hard work in. And those are the folks that you're going to find are the most successful.
So tell us about the Pinkubator. It seems like you've done like a dozen investments already.
Yeah. Oh my God. So this is the fun after the exit, is money where my mouth is. I made a big exit, and I thought, well, I don't want any woman to have to walk that same path I did. I knew my best work would be reaching my hand back, pulling other people to my kind of outcomes faster than I got there myself. And so I invest in disruptive founders, so female founders, and really kind of disruptive first. I like to take on crazy challenges, like the first ever drug for women's libido. There are many other ideas like that are out there. And when you're doing something that no one has ever done before, it's not surprising that people will laugh you out of the room. It's sort of their imagination can't get there. And those are the ideas that really light my soul on fire. People walk in to my office, the Pinkubator, and they have these game-changing ideas that really most people will overlook, or they don't look the part, if you will. If we close our eyes and imagine, like, what does the next billion-dollar founder look like, we probably have a mental image of that. And so the work that we're doing, I think, is not only disrupting markets, but it's disrupting our notion of who it is that's going to get us there.
So
who has what it takes.
What do you look for in the entrepreneur that's walking in? When she walks in, what are you looking for?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have a thing for founders. I'll say it's OCD for founders. And this is what I'm looking for. Obsessive. You have to be obsessive about your product, your mission, why you're the person to do it. I'm looking for that obsessiveness. You might be able to tell, even in this short exchange, I'm pretty obsessive. That's one. 2, curiosity. If you haven't read the book, A Curious Mind by Brian Grazer, I recommend it to all of you guys. It's such brilliance that he actually has a discipline that every week he will schedule a curiosity conversation with somebody who's actually not in his world, not in his field or anything else, because we can learn so much by looking outside of our little typical circle or our little industry. The curiosity, here's what it's telling me, and Dan knows this so well from investing in founders as well. If you are inherently curious, you will be able to pivot. And I got to tell you, you're going to have to, at some point along this way, pivot. And if you have that kind of open-mindedness, that you're always listening and everything else, I know that you've got that sort of capacity within. And then, simply put, the D is determined. You have to be tenacious as hell to see it all the way through to the finish line. And that determination, has to show up even when the doors are slamming in your face and the credit card companies are calling. You got to be determined that you're going to see it all the way through.
Can you tell us about 1 or 2 of the investments that you've made that stand out? There's a couple of those companies.
Oh my God, it's like picking your favorite children.
Okay, how about the one?
I love them because they're
with the
really
nails?
such game changers. Oh, I'll tell about that. It was actually my first investment.
Oh, really?
So when I started the Pinkubator and the Pink Ceiling, there was a technology that literally, if I take my finger and I stick it in a drink, in 30 seconds, it will tell me if there's a date rape drug in that drink. That is remarkable technology. So the disruption, it's patented, it's brilliant, and it is not only, a game-changing sort of first technology, but it is a catalyst in a social conversation that we need to have. I have 2 nieces in college. One is out now, but at the time when I invested, they were both in school, and I couldn't think, how could I help them get that to market as quickly as possible? So that's one. I have a technology for Alzheimer's. There is not a current treatment. Not in years, for 20 years, companies have chased a potential medical treatment for Alzheimer's. No one has successfully gotten there. And then these, 2 genius technologists, guys, by the way, but Alzheimer's disproportionately does affect women, have come up with a way to create a personalized treatment plan by taking all the body of evidence. Got a flushable pregnancy test coming to market, the first ever, not your mother's pregnancy test, It's awesome. The founder, Bethany, is like 4 foot nothing and total power. I mean, I love these. They're all these amazing technologies in really sort of, cool categories.
Okay, so fighting for injustice is important to you, and the injustice that you're fighting with the pink ceiling is not only women's limited access to capital, but also their limited access to mentors. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll be more specific. My mission inside the pink ceiling is to make women really rich. That's my mission.
I love it.
And
I love
I get an interesting reaction. Dan gives me the right reaction because that's the kind of guy he is. And then other people are like, what? Because we really are sort of weird in talking about money and women talking about money. But let me tell you what I mean by that. For so many years, we've talked about women need a voice. What women need is power. And money is some of that power. It's power to sit on the other side of the table and invest in those things we want to see in this world. And it's really the power to do good. It's like Dan is more passionate about his charity than anything else. He has that power to do real good in this world. And what happens, injustice for me, these things, these gaps in the market that make no sense, these oversights like the fact that women get 2% of venture funding. 2%? Half the population is 2% of the good ideas. We can all look at that at face value and know that that's ridiculous. Injustice is what ignites me, but the ambition really is how do you create ownership for many that changes the game, again, changes that perception and puts money in their hands to go pay it forward to the next group, to the next group, to the next group. It's my proudest accomplishment is that everybody who's ever joined me has had skin in the game, ownership in my company, and to watch what they've done, whether it's their kid who started a company or the charity that they began. I mean, that's the best part of all of this.
So you said that by all the data, women will pay it forward. They will invest in their communities, invest in their families, and in other women, and they will go on to mentor others. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's great data to support this, and it's really about 70% of money that women make. And they'll look at this even like outside of the United States. If you go in and do microloans, for example, in developing countries, what happens is once women start to get money in their pocket, they start investing it into their community, into other businesses. And for all the women that I invest in inside of the Pink Ceiling and the Pinkubator, they make a commitment to me that they're going to pay it forward. And I think that can be also through mentorship. You said that in your last question, Dan. The injustice isn't just lack of access to capital, but it is lack of access to mentors. It shouldn't be a lonely club of women who've had billion-dollar exits, but it's a pretty skinny group here that has it. And we got to get more women to that. And that means that it's helpful for them to be able to have a conversation with another woman who's done it.
So I read that people used to push you and say something about the last company, that Cindy, nobody's going to lose their life from this, and that you would say they might not lose their life, but they might lose their life as they know it. The relationships, they might end in divorce, self-esteem issues. Like, talk about that part.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, especially right now, most of us haven't left quarantine just yet. And for everybody who's been locked up with their partner, if something's going wrong in the bedroom, boy, is it magnified right now. And I can tell you, even from my own business, I now have this company back, Sprout. The product is Addy. And it's just like our online traffic has exploded for people who are looking for this. In that moment, what Dan was saying is, when I set out to do this, a lot of people had an opinion. My parents tease me to this day. They're like, could you have not come up with a product in diabetes? Because they know that if you're not diabetic, you probably don't have an opinion. But oh my gosh, when it comes to sex, everyone has an opinion. And when I was doing this, I had a lot of challengers. I had a lot of sort of controversy that surrounded it. And people would sort of say, come on, Cindy, no one is going to lose their life from this. If a woman's not satisfied with her sex drive, like, okay. And I said, you know what? Go talk to her, because she's losing her life as she knows it. She's probably lost a marriage potentially over it. She's lost a sense of self-esteem. And it's why, like, one of our greatest skills for all of us who are problem solvers here is ever so simple. It's listening. And if you will listen to what others are saying, if you will listen to those problems that you have the ability to solve, the possibilities are endless, but most people don't. And you have to sort of force that, be the champion of that. And, you know, this product has, I mean, I tell great jokes. I've been in the field of sexual medicine for a long time. It makes me have really good jokes for cocktail parties. But you know what? It's such a part of our human experience. And the idea that like women didn't have a single treatment until I broke that ceiling in 2015 is crazy to me. And I think the next wave of it is kind of the next wave of the sexual revolution. This will now be a $34 billion category by 2025. And I'm so pleased that we broke the door down for all of these different options to come forward.
That is amazing.
It's a good place to invest, by the way, if anybody's an investor listening in here.
So where can people find you on social media and find your company, find your world online?
Okay, so I hope you'll follow me at CindyPinkCEO. And you can find thepinkceiling.com, and my product is addy.com. It's ADDYI.com.
I'm just typing that in, ADDYI.com.
YI.com.
All right, Cindy.
Twitter is the same. Somebody just asked, Twitter account at CindyPinkCEO across all handles.
That's a very important tip, by the way. You want your social media name to be the same across all handles because you don't know how people are going to find you. You don't know if they're going to look you up on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. You want to keep it the same so that wherever they look for you, it's always going to be the same screen name. All right, guys. You're watching Cindy Eckert at CindyPinkCEO. So much fun to follow you online, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Dan. Always a blast.
All right, our next guest, Mr. Cameron Forni. He built up one of, if not the biggest CBD brands on the planet. Last year, they had a $1 billion valuation. He's in so many stores. I don't know. It's just so much to talk about. Please welcome Mr. Cameron Forni.
Hey, Dan. Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
Doing well. Just enjoying Arizona.
Is it hot out there?
It's hot. It's nice. It's really nice, but it's been good out here. We have a really strong business presence out here, so had to get out here and check on the company and make sure everything's doing well.
So how many locations do you have around? Is there warehouses, offices, dispensaries? What's the world like?
It doesn't stop. Now that we were acquired, I became president of Select and an executive at Curaleaf. Curaleaf is trading on the Canadian Stock Exchange at cura.cn. We are currently closing another acquisition with a company called Grassroots. It'll put us in 21 states, 131 dispensary licenses, 2.1 million square feet of cultivation, and about 30 processing facilities across the United States, with currently about 2,300 employees right now. So it's a big entity, and you're never really done. You're always kind of going to the next state and the next state and seeing what's going on there and making sure that everything's going as planned and the products are looking right and the business is looking good. So it never stops.
When you have that many places, how do you choose what to do? There's so much to oversee.
There is. I'm really focused on expansion. I started the company in my living room. So, literally me and my wife and, put in all of our cash, maxed out our credit cards, really started the company there and really been expanding with the company across all states. So, I'm really focused on expansion, but I always go back and check on existing markets and really spend most of my time and my energy focused on any of the problem areas, the ones that are doing really, really well. You just have to go there less because the team's strong and the culture's strong. And then when you have to go into new states or new areas or new acquisitions, a lot of times it takes a lot of energy going in there and making sure that the culture's right and the business is running well.
So are the dispensaries named Select, or is that a different brand name, or are they all the same?
They're called Curaleaf. So some are called Curaleaf. Some are new acquisitions that haven't had name change yet, such as Acres in Nevada. We bought another dispensary called Blackjack, which now is converted into Curaleaf. But Curaleaf's really a big brand on the East Coast. They have limited licenses in New York, New Jersey, Florida, Maryland, Massachusetts, Maine, and so forth. And Select is really the largest cannabis consumer brand and recreational brand, primarily on the West Coast. So really what this partnership was taking the brand Select over to the East Coast, where I started in Oregon, which Oregon is arguably the most competitive cannabis market in the entire United States. People care about their quality. They go, to the absolute max on flushing their product and growing organically and making sure that the product's done right. So really, I kind of took our processes that we had to kind of cut our teeth in a highly recreational cannabis market in Oregon and medical market in Oregon, and really bring those processes out to a state like New York, which really hasn't had too much of a cannabis market, more than just, an illegal market kind of being shipped over there. So really kind of taking those practices and advantages that, the West Coast has been, legal in the medical market for, 15 to 20 years. So it's really been a blast kind of bringing those processes east.
So you have 2,300 employees, but whenever I search about you for these interviews, I always read about the culture, and you win these awards for best culture. You're always giving out the best benefits and higher wages. Can you talk about why that matters to you so much?
Because people matter. People are the most important thing. They're the driving piece behind this entity. I'm sure we've all been in a job before where we've just clocked in and we've punched in at 9 a.m. and we've punched out at 5 p.m. That doesn't do it. It doesn't do the trick. I mean, we've had years where we've grown 14,500% and set records for the fastest growing company in the history of Oregon, and Inc. 45 fastest growing companies list. First time a cannabis company's ever done that. And the only way this takes place is if people love what they're doing and they're committed to it and they're driving to be better and they're driving to do better for the company every single day. You can, if when I leave a facility, all of a sudden they're like, oh, the boss is gone, and everyone starts coasting and relaxing, that's not going to drive the company and drive the business forward. So you have to instill that culture in your company and in your people, that they continue to work and they work harder, and they send videos of them dancing and working harder even when you're gone than when you were there. Without that culture, you really don't maximize your business. So the culture is absolutely critical.
So you start Select CBD in your living room. There's thousands and thousands of brands since then that have popped up in the CBD space. How do you stand out amongst this crowd?
It's difficult. We have the largest cannabis company in the United States, and, part of that is through our CBD company, and Select, really blew up. It is a very highly trusted brand. We have 5 test results that go to every single product that we sell on the market, which is a lot. I mean, we spend millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars testing our product. And that's how we always want to differentiate and set ourselves apart, was we are the most highly tested and scrutinized product on the market. And really, we had to take our chance as everything kind of opened up, and as big box retailers were beginning to start taking products on their shelf. We had to be there with the capacity, the brand name, the confidence, the ability to float $1 million, $2 million purchase orders, because entrepreneurs don't realize that once a Walgreens or CVS buys your product, they're not going to pay you for 60 days. Right? Yeah. And then if you do really, really well, you just floated $1 million, and now they order 2 million. Now you're floating 3 million. You don't even have a check coming until you're $6 million deep in inventory. And it can just kill you. So we made sure that, we were ready, and we were ready on all fronts. I mean, we're sold at every Hudson newsstand, from LAX to Las Vegas International Airport. We're sold in Whole Foods, New Season, LA Grocer, Air One, Plaid Pantry, Circle K. I mean, we really just got in at the right time, had the right products at the right price points, and really were part of it at the right time, and didn't stop working. I mean, some people can just sit back and take one order, and I still go to every single order and every meeting, and I go to the sales meetings personally still, to this day, to make sure that our business has the best fighting chance, and that we're going to continue to win and continue to push forward. If you kind of quit as an entrepreneur, your people pass you. So you gotta be fully invested and fully committed to the success of the business. So I'll just kind of give a little bit more background about the company and how it started. So, it started back in 2015, and I really started working with cartridges and understanding what the future was. I knew that cannabis, there had never been an opportunity like this, especially during the end of Prohibition in our lifetimes. And I've always loved cannabis. I use cannabis to go to sleep. I use it every single night. I'm a big fan. I'm an advocate for it. I'm an advocate for pushing regulation. And I'm a big advocate for ensuring that cannabis shouldn't be a prohibited substance. I think people should have the choice if they choose to use cannabis or if they choose to use alcohol. It's really their choice. And I also think if you are to legalize cannabis, our stores are taught to ID everyone that aren't 21 years of age, and to ensure that our products are tested and our products are clean, and our products are safe. And that's just not something that's happening on the black market. We pay an insane amount of taxes. We pay a 44% supply chain tax, 24% excise tax, 12% state tax, 6% gross revenue tax, 35% 280E tax. It doesn't allow us to write off the cost of sales, marketing, or executive salaries. So we're, one of the highest taxed businesses in the world. It's difficult and it's a challenge every single day, especially as you have different rules and regulations. Each city, each county, each state all have different regulations. They're sometimes governed by the liquor commission in the state. They're sometimes bordered by the Department of Taxation, or sometimes they have their own tax that they have to pay depending on what the entity is that's governing it. So we have changing rules constantly from the medical body, from the health association, from the city, from the county, from the neighborhood association, from the fire marshals, and so forth, that are constantly always changing. And it's very difficult, especially if you're operating in 21 states, just to remember the rules and the regulations in 21 states. Can be difficult and really cause some serious damage. So it's really kind of been a challenge there. But starting the company, it was much easier. I was just working in one state. I was working in Portland, Oregon, and really started on what was the future of cannabis? Is it smoking flower? Is it vaporizing? And what was it? And I really became obsessed and interested in vaporization. My partner at the time had a Barrett's esophagus. So every time he would smoke flower, the carcinogens in that flower would irritate the cell damage in his throat, and that would cause him to get bronchitis 3 to 4 times a year. So we went to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and he said, well, have you looked at vaporization, where combustion is taking place from 750 plus degrees to 1200 degrees, where vaporization is taking place from 400 degrees to 700 degrees. Have you looked at vaporization? It's not going to cause that combustion and the release of those carcinogens, which are going to cause the damage. So started looking into it and started pulling apart every cartridge I could get my hands on. Bought every single cartridge in the industry from every supplier and so forth, and really started breaking them apart. And I noticed a similar trait in every single cartridge was a silica fiberglass base wick. And I started doing research. What's silica fiberglass? Well, it's a level 2 carcinogen, can cause silicosis, shortness in breath, and trouble breathing. Knew that wasn't a good thing. Started looking at what does the e-juice company use? What does the nicotine industry use? Nicotine's a $40 billion industry, the e-juice vaping industry. And all of the top e-juice people, all of the top mod box makers, everyone used Japanese organic cotton and American Canthal steel. Time and time again, I would go to all these vape contests, which were just wild. They would just take these large mod boxes and they go, when they blow these huge clouds and try to cover school buses. And they would have the King Cloud contest. Whoever had the biggest school bus, they could cover the most of it. They would win these prizes. And every single one of them had Japanese organic cotton and American Canthal steel. So I started looking into it, started doing my own designs, started kind of bringing that Japanese organic cotton and Canthal into a miniature sized cartridge, such as the one we're selling now, and really worked on the development of these cartridges. And finally, after about a year of work, got it right and got it developed. And it's never 100% right. It takes a lot of work to make sure that you're always tuning the cartridge to the viscosity of the oil and making sure that they're working in unison and in pair. And that's what all of our cartridges are now. We tune every single cartridge, the MAW, the battery, the ohm, of the coil, to the viscosity of the oil to ensure that it's a perfect simile and it's a perfect experience every single time. And we've sold about 31 million cartridges now since 2015. We've done about $600 million of retail cannabis sales so far in the United States, and just couldn't be happier of really what we've accomplished. And we really pioneered the testing of for pesticides in full analyte panels, not only in Oregon but in other states, and where our pre-screening for pesticide analysis has actually became law in a lot of states. And some people don't like that because they say it causes it to be more expensive for the industry, and a lot of things don't fail once they get fully tested. But it's always kind of been my opinion that, I love my product, and I smoke every single night, and I smoke my own product, and I'm just not going to smoke something that's bad or that has pesticides or any issue with it. So where some people get upset about it, I wear it as a badge of honor.
Question, do you think about the international markets? Like, will you ever go that way, or will the international products ever come to America?
Both. Right now we are working on that. We've already had our first shipment to the UK. That's going really well. We are in the middle of a large deal to bring our products to Switzerland. We have applied with the federal government in Mexico to bring our products to Mexico, which is a very, very difficult process, to about 22,000 pharmacies in Mexico. We are working on Germany right now, as Germany just opened up for CBD. We have been going forward with the process in Canada. Canada is just a little bit more difficult because there's no branding allowed whatsoever. And that's really hard to differentiate yourself in a product if it has to be just in a plain white bag with no information on it. So yes, we are looking at that. We're also in talks with Thailand. We're also in talks with China about not only bringing products there, but helping bring products here as well. So very, very exciting to kind of see what the future holds. And it's nice to see people start to kind of relax their laws on something that shouldn't be banned in the first place. So with so many thousands of white label brands coming out into the market, do any of them really have a chance to get to the big time, or are they mostly fighting for, like, nibbling on the? It's tough. If someone has a true brand that's true to its story and its messaging and what it believes in, you can still do it. It's just difficult. We do manufacture a lot of white label brands for people. Everyone from Volcom to we've done a ton of different companies and brands and products for them. So unless they really have strong distribution and strong distribution points or a strong sales team behind it, it's very, very difficult to crack the market. So you really need to either have a product that stands on its own and has such a following behind it that it's just flying off the shelves, or you got to be able to have the resources or the connections to really get into 7-Elevens or Circle K's or so forth. But other than that, it's pretty difficult to just spin up a company out of nowhere right now.
So where can people find your brands online, find the stock, find everything about your company?
You can go to cureleaf.com. You can go to selectbetter.com or selectoil.com. I have a LinkedIn, Cameron Forni. We have Select Better at Select Better for our Instagram. I don't have social media yet. I am going to get social media here soon. I've just been working. I've been really focused on everything in the merger and HSR and everything that we had to go through to do a merger of this magnitude. So I've been really quiet on social media, but look forward to joining everyone.
I'm gonna pull him on there, guys. Don't worry. I'm gonna get Cameron on the social media. All right. You've been listening to Cameron Forni. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Bye-bye.
All right. Our next guest is on a mission to become the greatest investor of all time. He's done over 150 angel investments, 7 of them already hitting the unicorn status, meaning they've got a valuation over $1 billion. And I have a feeling he's going to get a lot more each year. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Jason Calacanis.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan.
Good to see you. How are you?
How are you handling the quarantine? It's not your thing, is it?
No. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like a bird with my wings clipped, right?
Similar.
All right. If you could give everybody a bit of background about yourself, and I'm going to dive right into questions.
Yeah, so I was a former journalist entrepreneur, sold a company or two, and then was asked by the top venture capital firm here in Silicon Valley, Sequoia Capital, about 11 years ago to become didn't exist before, but now is very commonplace, to become what's called a scout. just kind of similar to scouting in basketball. You go look for some raw talent and make a bet and get in there early. So I did that for them. And in my first 7 investments, I hit Thumbtack, DataStax, and Uber. And that kind of started. It was kind of like, I mean, it would be like getting into the game and like hitting 3 half-court shots in the first 7. Yeah, I mean, because these are not even 3-pointers. But what I attribute a lot of that to was the network I built as a journalist. And also, I started investing when the market had crashed in 2008, 2009. So really, your ability to be a great investor has to do with, the waves you're surfing. Lucky enough to start absolutely at the bottom of the bottom, which is where we are now again today, right? It's pretty paradoxical.
So you've done these 150 investments. That means you've seen thousands and thousands of pitch decks. How can someone stand out to you as an entrepreneur or as a company?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I get it a lot. And I'm actually now starting to get close to 250 investments because I've raised 3 funds. And I have an accelerator. And when you have an accelerator, you're having 7 companies per cohort that we put $100,000 into each one. And that's kind of how we get to know somebody if we want to put $500,000, $1 million, $2 million into the company. So it's much different than when I was putting in 25 and 50K checks. Now the dollars have gone up, the ownership percentage has gone up, and our engagement has gone way up. And it's not just me. I have a team of 12 people working with me on the investment company. And to your question, what do investors look for? Well, if we're talking about Silicon Valley investors, those investors are much different than the investors who might be in cannabis, like your previous guest is in, or small businesses or movies or restaurants. Those people have a different profile, and they have a different expectation of return. In Silicon Valley, we're looking for a very small number of companies to have outlier success. So that means a company that can get to, in 7 years, 10 years, somewhere in that range, over 100 million in revenue. That is a level of growth that does not exist in the normal business world. This is an outlier world. So we are prepared to have 40 or 50 investments go to 0 in order to have the 10 that maybe return 2 to 10 to 50. And in the case of an Uber, 2, 3, 4,000x. Right. Now that's not percent, that's X. So $1 turning into $200 or $1 turning into $2,000. So that only exists in venture capital, the lottery, and cryptocurrency for a moment in time. And so in the only sustained places this kind of return profile exists is venture capital and the lottery. Assuming crypto doesn't, Bitcoin doesn't go to 9 million.
Sure. So
90 million.
When you first saw Uber, right? You were on the 3rd or 4th investor in Uber. That's like a huge gamble to think about. Travis was talking about building something that was going to change the world. How did you decide to make that investment that early?
Yeah, so it's pretty simple. I had the easiest job ever. I had known Travis through his first 2 companies. The first one failed, he got sued. The second one, he had like a single or double in our industry. I think he sold it for 30 million. Investors made money, but certainly not what they made on an Uber. And so, you get to know founders, and you're really looking for that dogged founder who cares deeply and is not going to give up. The number one thing that kills companies is not running out of money. It's the founder giving up, right? And so we're looking for a high level of resiliency and somebody who really wants to build something big. When we looked at Uber, I think most people thought this could be a $1 billion business, a $10 billion business. Nobody really thought it would get to 50 or 100 billion or anything in that range. But, here we are, and it's sort of trending towards that. And yeah, it's just really you're betting on entrepreneurs at the end of the day. Somebody today asked me, like, if you had to bet on a market or a founder, which would you bet on? A market being like cannabis or ride sharing or hotels and, Airbnb kind of situation. And you always want to go for the founder because the founder will find out if a market hits a roadblock and they'll pivot, they'll, evolve. But, an idiot going after the perfect market is not going to execute well. So you really want to just go after that incredible player. So they'll figure it out, they'll adapt.
So it's interesting. I throw an event called Elevator Nights, which is like this free entrepreneur event. We get 300 to 1,000 people at these events. And the only time in history, in 6 years, a company got a standing ovation, right? I ran over to him. I said, look, I'll put 150K in. My friends over there in the corner, they want to put in 1.1 million. We're in for the whole thing. Let's go, right? Yeah. My dog's getting excited over it. So that company, we were betting on the founder. He figured out how to do like reverse travel. Okay. Like instead of you saying, hey, I want to go to Hawaii, I've got $2,000, you say, I got $2,000, where can I go in the world?
Yeah.
Cool concept, goes off. That company doesn't do anything like that anymore.
Yeah.
He pivoted, Walmart invested in the company, and now he does it for businesses and like it's a boring company. But now it's got, now we raised $18 million and away he goes, right? And I look at that, I love talking about the founders because the founder will figure it out.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
Okay. You said you want to be known as the greatest investor of all time. Can you elaborate on the mission for the greatness? Like, why is that your goal?
You know, if you win the lottery like 3 or 4 times, you kind of get bored, and you have to set some new challenges. So, you know, like a Phil Hellmuth or something, you know, who's a good friend of mine, you know, he's really, he had a big influence on me because when I met him, I think he had 9 bracelets or 8, 10 years ago. And, you know, we were playing cards in our regular weekly game. And Chamath, who is a mutual friend, I think you know Chamath as well, just told him, like, listen, why aren't you going for 25 or something? You know, why aren't you taking it more seriously and do more events? And I watched him say, his email, I think, used to be like,
something for greatness?
Yeah, something like trying to be the greatest, whatever, and then being the greatest, right?
Yeah.
And he just said, you know, I really want to try to be the greatest of all time. And obviously that's, you know, very debatable in terms of cash games and other things. But in terms of tournaments and no limit for specifically, I don't think it's any more debatable. And then when it came to angel investing, you know, I hit the Mount Rushmore. Nobody would say I'm not top 4 anymore. They might begrudgingly give me the 4th spot, but I'm definitely going to make it to Mount Rushmore. So, you know, at my age, I'm 49 now. I just said, what's a challenge for this last, you know, 3rd act of mine? And I think trying to be the greatest investor of all time, if I can keep my pace up of 60 investments a year for 10 more years, that would put me at 850 investments. And if I hit a unicorn every 50 or so, or 100, or even 25, whatever the average winds up being, I'll definitely be the greatest of all time. A single investor. It may not be the best firm of all time. That may still be Sequoia or Benchmark or other people. And it really is just a personal goal setting thing to just give me like a North Star. And really, that's not our mission statement. Sure. That's a personal goal. Our mission at launch, which is the name of our investment company, is to support founders and inspire innovation. So, you know, there's personal goals that you might have, but there's a mission for the company. And there's also strategies and tactics that allow you to achieve goals. And there's strategies and tactics that will let you fulfill the mission. And it's important to parse those out. What you pointed out is a personal goal of mine, but the mission of the company and that the 12 people working at it all work around and think about is not making Jason the #1 investor of all time. It's, are we supporting founders and are we inspiring innovation? Are we inspiring people to become founders? Because that's a bigger mission. That's really what I'm trying to do, is get more people to take more risk, build more companies, build more jobs. And when they see an idiot like me become wealthy and hit a bunch of home runs, they go, well, if that kid from Brooklyn can do it, I can do it. And that's really a big part of what I'm trying to do.
So do you ultimately want to be a large fund like a Sequoia, or that's what these funds are, or do you want to be more like a syndicate and angel investor type?
Yeah, I'm trying to build something much different. You know, I consider myself a solo act. So like Rolling Stones, you know, Dire Straits, whatever, pick a great band, Zeppelin, whatever your band is, that's great. I'm a solo artist. If you put me in a band, the band's going to break up. I'm kind of like Dylan or something. Like, I'm good on my own. I write my own lyrics. I write my own songs. I could have a great backup band. I could play with the Dead. I could play with Tom Petty, but I'm a solo act, and I'm self-aware to know that. I do not want to debate with anybody what investments I'm making, not for a minute. In the same way, like Bob Dylan probably doesn't want to talk about the lyrics in his song. He just wants to write the song and have people hear it in that pure format. And both things are valid. Collaboration is valid. You know, being part of something is valid. I want to build a team, and I want to, you know, I'm a solo artist. And really what I've built is something called thesyndicate.com, which took me a little while to get that domain name. But we have 4,000 investors who, when I invest in a deal, I share it with them and say, anybody else want to invest? And if they choose to, they can put in, if they're accredited investors at least. I think the average check size now is around 6,000. So instead of the minimums, which you know are typically 25, 50, or 100,000 to be in a round, and you have to have access to the person, we were able to lower the minimum to 2 to 5K, and on average people put in 6, and then have 250 people in an LLC, which is called an SPV, then go invest in a company. And if it has a great outcome, I get 20% of the gains. If it has no outcome, people lose their money like they normally would. So it gives people who are in the syndicate the ability to follow on my deals, which if I'm good at picking and I've got a good reputation, it's worth the 20% vig, right? It's worth the carry.
So you also had something called the launch, something called the launch conference, and these gotten really big, like 10,000 people at these things. Can you talk about that?
The peak was 15, yeah.
15, wow.
Yeah, so the launch festival was something I started because I wanted to kill the demo conference and other conferences that used to charge founders $20,000 to pitch their company on stage for 5 minutes. And I said, what if it was free to be on stage? Then we said, what if it was free to be in the audience? Then we said, what if it's free to be in the demo pit in the exhibition area? So I took what would have been a $5 to $10 million revenue conference and then ran it down to 2 million. Then I ran it down to $1 million. Then I ran it down to 500,000. So basically, I took a really money printing machine and made it a free machine. But it built so much goodwill and built my brand so quickly over a decade that I was able to become, Mount Rushmore angel investor. So I basically gave up the short term, $500,000, $1 million in profits a year for the long term, trying to be, the investor in the next com.com, Robinhood, Uber, whatever.
So in those 7 unicorns, is there something similar that you see across those 7 that stand out as why they won?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the founders in all cases had very bold ideas, and they were incredible at executing. And this is something that's, I think, hard for people to keep in their head. You really want to have an idea that is so outlandish that most people think it's foolish. And you want to execute with a level of dexterity that is world-class. And so if you take those 2 things apart, most people who are really good at executing are going to pick a very logical idea to execute on. In other words, a small idea and an easy idea. So, if you make a hamburger joint, if you execute really perfectly, great. You can make a really packed, profitable hamburger joint. But that's not making Shake Shack, right? Or that's not, it's 2 different visions.
Right.
Or McDonald's for that matter. And so, if you look at something like Robinhood, when they pitched me on the company, I said, okay, they actually walked up to me in a bar and they said, hey, you're Jason Calacanis. And I said, yeah, tell me about your startup. And they said, how do you know we have a startup? I said, you recognize me. It's the only reason you know me is because of This Week in Startups, my podcast. And he said, yeah, well, here's our idea. We're quants and we want to get young people to trade. I said, like millennials? He said, yeah, we want millennials to trade stocks. And I said, let me stop you right there. These people are afraid to lease a car, get their own apartment, and they're on mom and dad's Netflix account. Do you want them to trade stock 40 or 50 years from now when they retire and they're 70? Good luck with that. And he said, well, that's the prize. If we get them now, then they're going to infect their friends. It'll all show their friends the app like they did with Uber. And we will then have them when they become, 30-somethings and 40-somethings, and they'll be used to trading stocks and Bitcoin and whatever on an app. I said, you know what, that actually makes sense. It is a big prize, and if you get it and nobody else is going after it, wow, it's a blue ocean, right? And they were like, yeah, exactly. I said, great. What's the business model? And they said, oh, that's the best part. I said, hit me. They said, the business model is we're not going to charge people. I paused for a second. I said, so let me get this straight. You're going after a market who has no desire to save for the future and has no commitment to anything but YOLO and Coachella and EDM music or whatever festival they want to go to. And then you're going to make money by making it free. And they said, yep. I said, I'm in. Because it was so outlandish, it's if it does work, and that's really when I talked before about the odds of something working, 80% chance of failure. I'm looking for the 80% chance of failure if it's bold enough and you're going to execute at a high level that if you do win, you are going to print enough money for this to become a very large business. And com.com was another example of that, a meditation app. People thought that was stupid. Who cares about meditation? And why would I meditate in an app?
Right.
I'm going to sit there and do nothing. I'm going to sit there and pay you for an app when I could listen to audio files on YouTube of people meditating. Why would I pay you? Like literally people told me this over and over. And it turns out if you make an incredible product, $5 a month is nothing to have an incredible meditation experience that gets richer every day. And they make that product better every day. And, I was like the second or third investor in that company, and the first one to put in, I think, six figures. I put $378,000 into it for 6%. And the company was doing like $5,000 or $10,000 a month. And, they've been very public about, blowing past 150 million a year. So, they're doing over 10 million a month now. That's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. And people thought I was stupid. Like there's literally a core question. Will Jason Calacanis lose $400,000 betting on a meditation app? And you can literally look at it from 6 years ago and see me answering it.
That's so fun. So speaking of betting, you also enjoy poker. I mean, the money part's irrelevant to you. You're playing in a game that's 5 figures or 6 figures. Like, what is it that makes you so passionate about the game?
There's something about the camaraderie of seeing your friends every week that is just amazing. Now, you could do that with golf, you could do it with book club, or just have dinner and drink. But poker is got strategy involved in it. And there's something about a group of people playing regularly, using and deploying strategy, and trying to figure out a puzzle, right? That's one of the great things about poker is, just when you think you're getting good, you kind of unlock something and you're like, oh, okay, there's the next level, right? And I've been at it over 10 years now, and I would say, I used to think, oh, I'm really good at this, and now I think I'm okay at it, right? So every year goes by, you kind of realize what next level some of these players are. And, just trying to solve that puzzle and the camaraderie and friendship associated with it. And it does inform a lot of what I do in terms of my day job, because no gamble, no future, right? You have to, scared money does not make money. And, when you put in that, third barrel and you're bluffing 3 times, like it is either terrifying or exhilarating to pull those moves off or to trap people. And, the only difference is my day job feels like every orbit I'm getting aces or kings, because I live in a world where, when you get good at this, angel investing that is, early stage investing, the great founders come to you because they know you add value.
Right.
And so it tips over. My first 3 or 4 years, I'm chasing deals. The last 3 or 4 years, I'm sorting through them, right? And in the middle, there was another 3 years where I was kind of flipping over. So now my mistakes used to be I couldn't find a great company. Now my mistakes are I found the company and I didn't make the right decision, right? And so it's changed a bit now, but it like poker investing, you just learn something, and every time you do it, you get a little better every year, and you try to do that. I think the Japanese call it kaizen, like where you're just trying to be a little better at your craft every year. I try to be intentional. I'm intentional with poker. I was playing PLO the other night, which is not something I'm very good at. I have a hard time, unpacking the PLO hands, and I've been playing virtually and watching videos and reading about hands and, writing notes about different hands and what happened. And, it's super counterintuitive when you flop a set and you're the underdog.
Yes.
You're like, how the fuck am I the underdog right now? Oh, it's like, oh, you're running it twice.
Yeah.
And there's 4 more cards to come, right? Not 2. And
you're up against
this
2 other
person have
hands.
the flush and the straight, right? It's a pretty amazing, game. I don't know, you play PLO at all?
Yeah, mostly, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like after a decade of playing Hold'em, you all of a sudden your brain unlocks PLO. And then I was playing Short Deck the other day. Have you played that yet? Where they take out everything? Where they take out everything under
2 through 6, yeah.
And oh boy, does that one get or it's under 6s?
Or 2 through 7, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and so whoa, that game just totally breaks your brain. Where you're like, whoa, straights are kind of interesting here. Whoa.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, I could talk about poker for days. I think what's fascinating about poker is the people that you meet. I started off by owning an online poker site, and then that turned me into playing in some of these big games and just started meeting all these entertaining characters and celebrities and athletes, and you're just getting to spend 8 hours or sometimes 2 days straight just playing these games with them and learning so much about their business, their life, and their world where normally you couldn't, right? You're not going to normally interact with these people.
In a way, it's the great equalizer. I used to tell people I didn't understand racism as much as like maybe I would have if I didn't grow up in New York, because we all just took the train together. And so you'd be on the train and there would be a rich banker and there would be, somebody who was a janitor and everybody in between.
Yep.
Like everybody took the subway, everybody kind of interacted. It was like this common thing. And then poker's got that as well, where you go to the casino and whether you're at Commerce or Aria, with the exception of the big room, you're going to get seated and you might be sitting with a famous basketball player or a hedge fund manager. And hey, what do you do? And it's like, yeah, I'm a hedge fund manager. What do you do? Oh yeah, I've been playing the NBA. Like, and everybody's equal at that poker table again, right? Everybody's chips, everybody's cards, everything's equal. And that's one of the things I love about it too, is the camaraderie. When I used to play in LA, my friend Sky Dayton and I he'd pick me up and we'd go drive down to Hollywood Park, which is like the absolute like worst place you could ever go in Inglewood. And we'd have this amazing time sitting with a real cross section of life. I would sit with dishwashers from Vietnam and celebrities and the weatherman and the, from the local news and all kinds of different people. And it was quite wonderful.
So you actually wrote a book about angel investing called Angel. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I had a book agent and they kept asking me to write books, and they're like, for some reason, the dummies people kept asking me, like, can you write podcasting for dummies? Can you write blogging for dummies? Because I was an early podcaster and blogger, and startups for dummies. I was like, am I supposed to get a little self-conscious here that you keep asking me to write books for dummies? But anyway, I got sort of halfway through angel investing and I realized, you know what? I feel like I am an expert on this now. I should write a book. And I realized that I found a casino where I believe I get aces and kings, every orbit, but there's no cap. When you're at a game, if you could get all 9 players at a 10K buy-in table to go in with you and you were the 10th player, the max you're going to win is 90K if you got everybody to go all in on a hand. Well, that's 10 extra money. But I'm sitting at a table where you can win 100 or 1,000 or 2,000x. Well, that doesn't exist anywhere. Right. Again, like the only place that exists is the lottery, like these kind of outlier successes. And so I wanted to write the book to inspire 10,000 people to become angel investors. And now it's been translated into like 10 languages, and I've got the syndicate with 4,000 members. So I'm really trying to get that syndicate to 10,000 members. And if I have 10,000 members, boy, we could do some serious damage in terms of building great companies in the world and really challenge the status quo of how companies are funded, right? You did this as well. You got a bunch of your friends together, you invest in something. As my father used to say, many hands makes for light work. And that's really what I'm trying to do, is get to the point where if I were to put out a company like a Robinhood or an Uber, and Calm was actually the first one I ever syndicated, instead of just putting in like small amounts of money, maybe we put in 5 million, right? Or 10 million. We get 250 people to put in 40K each. It's sort of a game changer, but 40K, that's not like for any affluent person, like people who buy in for poker games for 10 times that. So it's actually not that much money for an affluent person. And boy, could we make some really significant bets that would go up against venture capital firms doing those Series A or Series B fundings. So that's sort of my big vision here.
And fast. And very fast, right? Like if you put out an email to 4,000 people right now at $6,000 each, you're raising 7 figures very quickly, right? Like this is...
Yeah, the average deal size right now is between like, I think 600 and 700K.
That's great.
And usually that's because we're capped with our allocation. We've done, I think, 4 deals over 2 million and maybe a dozen deals over $1 million. We've done 130 deals and put $40 million to work. And if we, and one of those deals, Calm, which was the first of the 130, on paper, that's I think $50 million gain, something in that range. Right. So, the first bet paid for 130 bets, which is like when you think about tournaments, some of these great players, they win one tournament, it pays for 5 years of them being in the World Series of Poker. Right. And now they're free rolling for the next 5 years is how they look at it, right? And I think that's probably Phil Hellmuth's career. Like he wins one of these things and then he's set for years. So, it's a lot of hard work. But if you do the work, you can be very successful at it. The book is like kind of my gift to the next generation of angel investors. Like here's everything I've learned, and I'm working on a follow-up book, which again, it's just my way of, at my age, saying, here's everything I've learned. You take it and if I did a good job helping you, it's one of the things I love about books. They force like a discipline. You have to really think, and I take it seriously. Like, am I really passing on good knowledge? Because they printed 50,000 or 100,000 of these fucking things.
Right.
I want to make sure it's like legit, and I don't want people to pay $10 for it and not get some value out of it, or $20 for it. But I'm really trying to inspire those people, give them everything I've learned so that they invest in companies that then create more jobs and make the world better. And I know it sounds corny, but we got 20, 30, 40 million people out of work, depending on whose numbers you believe. Those people are not going to go work at big companies. They're going to go work at small mom and pop companies, venture-backed companies. And something like Uber, I'm very proud of the fact that they created millions of jobs and inspired other competitors to create millions of jobs in that sector. And people are like, oh, they're low-paying jobs. I had low-paying jobs when I started my career. I was a busboy. I was a waiter. I made less than an Uber driver, and I don't look down on somebody for driving for Uber for $15 or $25 when that's what Target pays. That's what Apple pays, right? Like, if people want to be their own boss, run their own business, and then they level up from 1 car to 10, or they study on the weekends and become a developer or a designer or an entrepreneur while they're hustling on Uber. I can't tell you how many Ubers I've been where I got pitched on their business idea, right? And so I'm very proud of job creation. I think it's super important. We're sitting here during the pandemic with coronavirus. People are talking about all the lives being lost. And of course, that's the first order of business. But I think people are greatly underestimating the number of suicides, the number of overdoses, alcoholism, divorce, and all the pain and suffering that will come from people not being able to pay their rent or have a livelihood. Yep. And this is a really hard thing to balance, I know, for people. But I am super concerned about the number of jobs going away, because it's not just, I think there's this like fallacy in people's head that the jobs that are being lost are just, it's Disney workers and they'll come back, and it's restaurants and half will come back, and it's retail, 2/3 will come back. I'm seeing lots of white collar jobs, 6-figure jobs that are going away at very robust companies that are just out of an abundance of caution cutting 20%. And those people equal downstream jobs and labor, right? So that person making $200,000 a year working at some high-tech company, they might have a nanny or a housekeeper, or they might have a tutor. And you're starting to see that downstream effect where the next group of people who rely on that income, I guess trickle down is what people would call it. I know that's a loaded term, but I do have some concerns there. And I think we really need entrepreneurs to start companies. And that's my big fear, is that this generation, some people call them Generation Wuss. I don't necessarily call them that, but I do think this socialist generation doesn't believe in capitalism. They think it's a bad thing to create companies. It's not a bad thing to create companies and create jobs. And there's other countries in the world that are communist countries, that are authoritarian countries, that they really want to create companies to compete with us. And TikTok is not an American company. It's a Chinese company. And that's getting pretty goddamn popular. And you're into social media, like, we're going to just give these companies and these franchises to China and authoritarian countries. Like, be careful what you wish for, because there are other people who want it more than some people in this country do. Yeah. And, democracy plus capitalism is, a horrible system. It's just the best one we've ever figured out to date, right? Like, this is the best operating system we've figured out. And so until somebody comes up with a better one, I suggest we don't give it to communist countries and authoritarian countries, and we keep capitalism and entrepreneurship alive, and we respect those people creating jobs, and we cherish those people who are entrepreneurs. Like, they're attacking Elon Musk right now for wanting to start the factory up. I understand it's a controversial thing and people can have different opinions on it, but this is one of the most important American companies we have that brought manufacturing back here. Like, if they're taking the precautions, let them make some cars. It's not the end of the world. Like, they're going to do it in a safe way. It's certainly safer than going to Trader Joe's. Right. So I'm having a hard time understanding why we can go to Trader Joe's and take the subway and fly on planes, but a small fraction of the Tesla employees can't go back and make some cars. It's not making sense, right? There's a vacuum of leadership in this country. I don't mean to make it political, but long story short, we must keep entrepreneurship alive. We must keep people motivated to create new things in the world and to build.
So where can people find you online?
I'm at Jason on Twitter, and I'm at Jason on Instagram. So twitter.com/Jason, Instagram.com/Jason, Jason.tumblr.com, Calacanis.com. My email is jason@calacanis.com if you got a great idea for a company. When you get it to your first 5 or 10 customers, you got 5, 10,000 in revenue a month. That's kind of when we invest. I'm happy to hear about things ahead of time, but if you're at that 10K a month in revenue and you want to 10x it, maybe next year and 10x it again after that, and then go for the triple, that's what we're looking for, and it's really, I appreciate you doing this, Dan. I know that you're as well have strong feelings about entrepreneurship and motivating people to do this. And, I just watch you every day on social media championing this, and you've already made your money, I know, and you could be doing other things, but I think it's super important to inspire people to start these companies, because it's hard as fuck to start a company. I mean, It's fucking hard.
Exactly.
And, it's very easy for everybody to just think like, I'll just get free tuition. I'll just get universal basic income. Like, be careful what you wish for. Like, this could be a disaster for society. I'm not saying we shouldn't have universal health care. I'm not saying that minimum wage shouldn't go up, but let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Like, capitalism has its problems on the margins. There are some things that might make certain people feel uncomfortable with, Bezos becoming worth 100 billion. It's hard to understand why somebody becomes worth that much, but he did create a lot of fucking value in the world. And you have that opportunity as well. And that's the problem, is people are looking at these outliers, and instead of saying, I'm going to go emulate that, they're saying, shut that down, and I don't want to go after it. And what we need to do is tell people, you can do it. You can become the next Bezos. You can become the next Elon Musk. Like, I know these people. You can do it. I mean, they're special people for sure, but I don't think that they're much different than everybody else who's on the call right now. They might be more focused, but when I met them when they were starting out, they were not as impressive as they are now. They're very impressive now based on what they've accomplished. But in the beginning, they were trying to figure it out too. And all these startups that I've invested in that become worth billions of dollars, in some cases tens of billions of dollars, they were awkward as fuck in the first year or two. Like, Uber was called Uber Taxi and had this really shitty logo, and it was a disaster, like in terms of like the app crashed. And then all of a sudden they just figured it all out. Like, you get 3-4 years in, it was like, okay, this is going to be a juggernaut. But it's all awkward in the beginning, and just try. And, if 60-70% of these companies fail, there's a very simple way to solve for that. Start 3 or 4. Take 10 years of your life, every 2-3 years, start a new project. Why would you go work for unless you're learning somewhere else and you're learning a shit ton, quit that job and then go start a company. At least do it a couple times in your life, because if you hit, it could be generational wealth. Anyway, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Make sure to follow Jason Calacanis. It's at Jason across social media. His podcast is This Week in Startups. Thank you.
Real talk. All right, thanks, pal.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe, everybody.
All right, our next guest has been a dear friend of mine for many, many years. He sold his first company for $1 billion and then sold divisions of it for another $1.2 billion shortly after that. He's now founded a company called Events.com, taking on the Eventbrites of the world, creating a company that's basically taken 13 of the main things that you would use in the event space all into one place with one of the best domains I've ever heard of, Events.com. Please welcome Mr. MitchThrower.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
Fantastic. How's it going?
It's going great, and I can't wait for Jason's next book.
It's so good, right?
Amazing.
So outside of the active.com and that whole world, you were also in the triathlete space and buying magazines and publications, and you've been really obsessed in the Ironman category, like so much in the health and fitness space. Can you talk about those things?
Yeah, so I obviously started actually as a lacrosse player in high school, and then I fractured both my knees. And when I did that in recovery, I fell in love with sport and found this sport of triathlon, which has just been incredible in my life. And I got involved in the sport early on, and it was just a kind of a natural progression. In fact, the folks who were running the magazine had approached me and asked if I would get involved in a project, and I asked them the question about who owned the magazine, and then just started to peel away the layers of who owned it and set up a leveraged buyout, which led to owning the title, and then ended up co-founding a firm that did ticketing and registration in the athletic world, and now co-founding a firm that's doing ticketing, registration, analytics, marketing, communication, data, all the things that are, really challenging for event organizers on different platforms. We're putting it all on one to try and solve the problem in a big way.
Yeah, so tell us about Events.com. I mean, this is a huge undertaking. This is one of the best domains I've ever heard of in my life. Tell us about the brand.
Yeah, it's a great domain. My co-founder, Steven, actually was walking down the street, and we said, well, what could it be called? And he said, well, it's easy. It's Events.com, but it's kind of difficult because it's owned by CBS. So we had to negotiate with CBS to get the domain. And it was just an incredible moment in time. And then taking our background in the space and also being able to look at, what isn't out there right now. I mean, you can find all the hotels on hotels.com. You can power your discovery of restaurants on Yelp. And realistically, there's been a bunch of people that have tried to help you find what's happening around you. And there's been a bunch of people trying to help your event get produced and promoted and generate revenue from it. But no one's brought all those things together truly in the sense of the word, where you say, where are you going tomorrow? Oh, let me check events.com. Or are you producing an event? Yes, I'm producing it on events.com.
So you guys are also expanding into the virtual event space. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so COVID navigated us. We had built a ton of virtual features for events that were promoting themselves worldwide on virtual experiences or digital experience or online. And we launched a virtual event directory, so you can find virtual events sorted by category. And we also have, the capacity for people to produce virtual events on events.com, because we're pack animals. Humans have been getting together in person for centuries. We're going to get back together again. And in the meantime, we're going to be getting back together the same way we are right now, virtually.
So how do you choose the right investors? A lot of times people just choose the first investors. How do you choose the right investors?
That's a good question. What a lot of people don't do when they're looking for investors is they don't do background research. And that's something that I think is super important to, most entrepreneurs are out there. If they are either growing organically or through partnerships or through investment, what will happen is they'll maybe, not look as deeply as they should into the people that are providing capital to them. And, don't be afraid to ask once you're at a yes. Don't be afraid to ask for references. I think your investors will respect you for doing that.
So how do you adapt with the times? You've been in the game for 2 decades now. You've seen a lot of things happen and come and go. Now you're in the event space, and obviously we're taking a break from events. I think we're going to rally back extremely back into events because we all want that personal connection. What are your thoughts about adapting during times?
Well, this is a really particularly challenging time for not just the event space, but for everyone. It kind of maybe starts with airlines and events, but ultimately it's going to touch everyone. We may be the first act in this play called COVID, but we're definitely just the first act. I think it does come back, and I think it comes back very, very large. I think a few things have to happen for it to come back as large as we believe it to be coming back. And in the meantime, I think it is all about adapting. And when the world changes around you, you have to change with it. And the first thing you need to do, because everyone's kind of in this COVID fog, right? Where everyone's like, what's next? What's happening? And I think the first thing to do, if anyone is old enough to remember the game of Atari, there was a game of adventure. And on Atari, you would get different things and you'd grab them. So take inventory financially, health-wise, with your family, your friends, and specifically with your business. Try and figure out what's missing, because in times of change, what is needed changes, and that changes also for your customers. So for us, events need the capacity to have a technology to defer a ticket to next year, or to help them with postponement, or to help them make the refund seamless, or whatever they might need. And if you take inventory when things change and take a step back, and it's hard. I mean, a lot of people are working from home, there's family, there's a lot on everyone's plate right now, but to take a step back and really look at what you've got, and what is your number one asset? And your number one asset, you've heard from many of the folks and from Dan as well, is your time. So, the question I'd ask, this is what a great panel. First of all, it's Sunday. You're all on this wonderful presentation that Dan's put together, which says a lot about the people that are watching. But everyone here at one point in their life will become a billionaire. It's actually age 32. And you probably know what I mean. But at age 32, you will have accumulated and spent over 1 billion seconds. You're given 86,000-ish a day, and, that's a lot, right? 31 million seconds a year, which gives you 1 billion seconds by the time you're 32. The question is, how are you spending them? And now, in the time of COVID, and in the time of analyzing your business and your life and the people that are working with you, how are you and they spending those seconds, or investing them? Because there's a huge difference. Spending it is, oh, what's on TV? Let's flip through what's there. Investing is, let's get online, let's watch Dan Fleyshman stuff, or let's figure out what we're going to do now to insulate ourselves and our friends and our family from the challenges that may be coming, and how we can rebuild as a part of the new world. Just after 9/11, a new normal emerged. We're looking at things, everything from a breath test for entry to event that people can, breathe into. And we're looking at things that help people get back online safely, and safety protocols and how we add safety. It's kind of a great thing for you to do, is look around and figure out how you're going to invest the biggest asset that you have. Because you know what, even if you go to zero, even if everything that you have is lost, you still have time. And time is what you can invest and get it all back and then some. As you've heard from a bunch of folks today, this has been pretty impressive group of folks.
So relationship capital is something I always talk about, and I think it's one of the biggest attributes you've had the last 20 years. How do you build up networks?
Yeah, and there's two things, right? First, for anyone out there that knows someone who lost a job, the way to maybe hack the process of finding a job is to, look at companies that just got funded. Look at places that are getting ready to expand. There are things like PitchBook and Crunchbase and all kinds of tracking things online about businesses that are getting funded. That'll give you kind of a place to go if you're looking for a job. If you're looking for capital and you want to network, really it's all about where you put yourself. You can either be at, the PB Bar and Grill, or you can go and have lunch at the Four Seasons. And if you can't afford the lunch, you can have coffee at the Four Seasons and meet and interact with people. Where you are and who you are with, either digitally or in the real world, is going to make all the difference with where you go. There's a concept that I love, if you remember the game, and I've said this before, but if you remember the game Chutes and Ladders, there was a number 28, and when you landed on number 28, you got to go all the way up through the game to the end. So there are people in your life that are number 28s. Find them, and all of the number 87s that slide you back to the end of the game, stay away from them. I know that everyone here has probably got people who call them, or maybe even people you interacted with before COVID, that you knew you shouldn't be interacting with. So, make sure to really invest, again, back to the concept of investing in building that network with people that can help you and that you like to spend time with, because then you'll be more effective.
Brand partnerships. How do you decide, somebody like an events.com, who would you align with? Like, how do you decide, like, Elevator Nights and events.com do something together? Like, how do you decide those things with those brands?
Yeah, so when you look at a partnership, there's a lot of people out there just trying to, get a sponsor, right? And I'll give a tip. One of the tips from our event handbook is, my event might not get sponsored again. Well, think creatively and try and figure out a way, whether it's a sponsor or a brand, that they generate revenue as well. So you can have an event, let's say there's 50,000 people that we're going to or be a part of or are on your mailing list. And let's say you have a sponsor that's getting ready to sell something. You can actually do a partnership where for every registrant that comes from their mailing list, they make money. So you can actually reverse engineer sponsorships to generate revenue for your sponsors as you're going into the contract or the relationship. This whole concept of put your money where your mouth is. If you're going to look for partnerships, look for someone not that can help you, but that you can really help. A company that you can help with their mission. And if you think about it that way, you'll be much more successful than just out there, chasing cash from a sponsor or a partner or whatever it might be.
All right, last question. How do you prepare for an exit?
I do participate in that crazy sport of triathlon. I've done Ironman a bunch of times down in Hawaii on the crazy lava. And in the sport of triathlon, you have transitions. And, at one point, you're not swimming anymore, you're biking. Another point, you're not biking anymore, you're running. And you transition through the process. And I've seen so many companies fall prey to not being ready for positioning for an exit. Go online right now or ask a business that that's had an exit and download a really solid due diligence checklist. And then create a folder for your company. And there's going to be a folder on legal where you put all your legal documents, all your employment agreements, all your contracts, everything, your patents, your trademarks. There'll be another folder for whatever division of your business that you're going into, contracts with clients. But that due diligence folder should be something you should navigate from the beginning of your business rather than trying to go back and recreate it. that's probably, one tip. And the other piece is try and figure out what the best place is to market your business, whether it's as a strategic exit, which is typically the highest outcome you will achieve, as opposed to just a private equity exit, whether it's an IPO exit, whatever that exit would be for yourself and your shareholders. Try and navigate in that direction and ask a lot of questions. There's a great book out called Venture Deals that's available. I think the 4th edition just came out. I think it was the original line, be smarter than your venture capitalist and your lawyer. And it's a really good book. So that's something I'd make sure people do.
And then where can people find you and your brand, events.com? Where can they find you guys on social media and the website and everything?
So events.com, obviously self-explanatory. I have, my Twitter handle is just MitchThrower. And there's a website, but, for the most part, events.com is really what we're focused on. And, I'm really hoping that the people on this call listen to everything that you're, experiencing tonight and incorporate it into your lives, because you have an incredible opportunity to go out and do something amazing with your life. And it sometimes won't feel like that in the chapter we're going through right now. My dad started something many years ago called the Yule log. You may be familiar with it. It was a burning fireplace on TV, started by WPIX TV in New York. And he was kind of this idea Santa Claus. And he would always say to me, hey, Mitch, it would be great. And then he would finish it with some idea that he had, which, one of them was the Yule log. And then for many years, people watched this burning fireplace in their holiday season. So, look around and say, what would be great? And then try and create it. Take that idea from neuron to reality, as hard as it is going to be, and it's going to be hard. The near-death experiences that we've gone through in the past have been challenging, but if anyone wants to reach out, feel free to reach out. We'd be glad to help you or your events, or just on a personal level. Just mention Dan Fleyshman in the subject header or whatever email you send to me, because otherwise it'll go into a pretty large swath of emails.
Well, as everybody knows, I use events.com for all my events, especially all the Elevator Nights live events for the last multiple years. You guys have been listening to MitchThrower, currently focused on events.com. Check them out on social media, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, our final guest, the closer, Mr. TomBilyeu. He built up a brand. It's one of the fastest growing brands in the history of America. Hundreds of millions of dollars, ends up selling it for $1 billion, all cash last year. But besides all that, his focus and his passion on his brand now called Impact Theory, on how he wants to impact so many lives, and watching him and his beautiful wife, the way they interact and what they do with their social media and their podcast, that is even more inspiring than the $1 billion over here. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. TomBilyeu.
What's up, dude? How's it going?
Good to see you.
Yeah, man, you too.
All right, if you could, give everybody like the 60-second version of the bio, because a lot of people already know your story, because I want to dive right into questions.
Yeah, man, I'll keep it short. So tried to get into film. That wasn't working out. Met some guys who were entrepreneurs. They said, if you want to control the art, you have to control the resources. So come with us and get rich. I thought, that sounds amazing. I thought it would take 18 months. It took 15 years, but it did work. And after starting, multiple companies, most of which failed, we hit a home run with Quest. And then since then, I founded another company called Impact Theory, which is a media company.
So in the beginning, you sent out 1,000 handwritten letters with your products to fitness people and influencers, which helped generate the first few millions of dollars in e-commerce sales and buzz. Can you tell us about that process?
Yeah, we sent out probably a lot more than that. When it was all said and done, certainly once we went beyond just pure influencers, we gave away hundreds of thousands of bars, maybe into the 7 figures. And our motto was, if you can't give the product away to build your business, then you probably have a problem with your product. So we wanted to focus on that, make something that people would just try it, then it would add value to their lives and they would keep coming back. And that's what I always tell people, to focus on the product. Like if you really want to move units of something, make sure that that product is undeniably awesome.
So I often tell entrepreneurs to do the mini version of that. Like, hey, just send out 40, 50 care packages, get it in people's hands. And it's hard because it's very rare that I actually see them do that. So when I read your story about doing thousands and thousands of those, it actually makes me angry that they don't do that work, because you guys did it and it worked. So similar to that influencer model, you also built up thousands of brand ambassadors. Tell us about going that route.
Yeah, so this was, we started formulating the company back in 2009, 2010. This stuff was the Wild West. Nobody had the words around it.
Right.
For a long time, we didn't even think of it as an ambassador. And it wasn't until we started to bring on professional managers that were like, you guys are sort of cobbling together an ambassador program, and why don't we make that more official? But the goal was like, nothing is more powerful than word of mouth. And so we had been sort of traditional business guys, marketers leading up to Quest. I had burned out on that, and I wanted to add value. I wanted to build community, which people just don't understand. That was so weird 10 years ago. And so to be talking like that, everybody's like, what are you guys doing? Like, you're leaving technology to go into food. Like, this is how you lose money. This is not a recipe for success. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I just want to connect with people. I'm trying to save my mom and my sister, and I know what they need is rad people around them that are encouraging, that are lifting them up. So with the people that we were touching them in a different way. It wasn't just trying to close or get a sale. It was trying to uplift them, encourage them, just be there to give them information instead of, always be closing. And so that just made people really into what we were doing. They wanted to tell people. And so we just wanted to help facilitate them having a voice around our product.
So in the early days of Quest, many manufacturers turned you guys down, and you had this idea to actually build your own equipment. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I remember when my partner came to me and said, yo, man, I think we're going to have to become our own manufacturers. And I was like, that's crazy. That does not make sense. Why on earth would we do that? Like, what we knew was technology, and we wanted to market the product. We did not want to have to manufacture the product, which is a whole new world. It's a whole new learning curve. That's all about square footage, employee management, just really figuring out engineering. And so it was a whole new challenge. But when we got so many no's and people telling us, look, this product can't be made, it can't actually be made. And that just seemed dumb to us. And so, they say, I love this quote, if I had known that the light at the end of the tunnel was an oncoming train, then I might not have been so eager to go into it. We had no idea what we were doing, and that naivete worked for us. So we thought it would be pretty easy. We thought, look, we'll get the equipment, we'll throw a little more human capital at it than most people would be willing to do, and we should be fine. And then we bought equipment and realized they were right. It actually wouldn't make the bar because of the type of material that we were using, which is a whole long story unto itself. But one of my partners was an Iowa farm boy. He looked at it and he said, look, I can actually make this work. I think I understand the engineering challenge, but I'm going to have to cut it apart and reassemble it. And if it doesn't work, we're fucked. So we're like, well, let's give it a shot. And so literally I have like footage of him with a Sawzall cutting this stuff apart and then welding it back together. And it actually worked.
That's so fun. All right. So after selling Quest, you could have bought an island and just disappeared, right? But instead, you double down, triple down, quadruple down on social media, podcasts, comic books with Steve Aoki, building your own version of Disney. Why?
Well, so I chased money for a long time. So I was being very honest when I said I was trying to control the art by getting rich. And so my mantra every day was about getting rich. And I was so obsessed with money that I ended up, I hate that this is true, but I ended up living the cliche of money can't buy happiness. So on paper, I was worth millions of dollars. I was making more money in salary than I'd ever made. And I was so deeply and profoundly unhappy that I eventually, this is when we were running a technology company, I went in and quit. I said, look, here's your equity back. So literally gave back $2 million in equity. I was like, I'm not going to cross the finish line, so I don't think I should get anything for this, but I just cannot keep doing this. I have to go do something that makes me feel alive. And so my partners were like, actually, we feel the same. So what would it look like for us to keep working together? And so we all agreed it was going to be to build a totally new company that was going to be around passion and value creation and basically feeling good, right, about ourselves. And it made me realize that the punchline of life is not money. It isn't fame, not notoriety or anything like that. The punchline of life is how do you feel about yourself when you're by yourself? And that's about like really learning to build meaning into your life. And I use those words very intentionally. You don't find meaning, you build it. You create meaning. You decide something is important to you and then you fight for it. My dad gave me this little plaque that I think sums it up pretty well, which is find something you would die for and live for it. And I always thought that was pretty amazing, minus the word find. If you say, decide what you would die for and live for it, like that becomes really, really powerful. And you realize that that's a process that you can walk down. So in building Quest, I knew it was going to be hard. So I put my mom and my sister at the center of my mind, and it became all about them, right? I'd grown up in a morbidly obese family, and so I wanted to serve them. And there's this great quote attributed to Mother Teresa where she said, "No one will act for the many, but people will act for the one." So it's like when you know somebody that's struggling with something, it becomes a lot easier to show up at 2 a.m. on a Friday, which if you're trying to build a company, let me promise you, you're going to be there at 2 a.m. on a Friday. Yeah. So having that thing, those people that I loved that I could hold on to, made it really easy. So I knew coming out of Quest, whatever I was going to do, no matter how much money I had, I would feel empty inside in a very short period of time if I wasn't living for something that mattered to me. So meaning, I think, is the single most important human driver, and ignore it at your peril.
So tell me about this whole Steve Aoki comic book world that you guys put together. What's going on there?
So when I was at Quest, well, even before that, so I big brothered for a kid that grew up in the inner cities, and I big brothered for him for 8.5 years. It was very transformational for me. And then flash forward 15 years later, I have 1,000 employees that grew up hard like that. And I'm talking hard, man, like holding your stepfather while he bleeds to death from a gunshot wound to the head, or your sister getting shot to death in the heart with an AK-47 in your front yard. Those are real stories, and just like more and more and more. So I started asking myself, all right, I know what I had to do to go from feeling frustrated, hopeless, scared, feeling like I wasn't good enough and that I was never going to achieve what I wanted to achieve in my life, to being able to generate wealth and getting control of my life and being able to build companies, and not because I had any entrepreneurial instincts or natural talent. I just learned all that shit, and I was willing to walk that path, hard though it was. So I was like, all right, some of this has got to be teachable. So I started what I called Quest University, and I said, anybody here that wants to know anything about entrepreneurship, I will teach you. I want you to control your own life. I don't want you to be here because you don't have any money saved up and you have to be here and you're terrified to go somewhere else. I want you to be here because I care more about your future than anybody else in your life. And so trying to give them all the skills, and it worked, but it only worked for about 2% of the people. And I'm a guy that's obsessed with scale. So I was like, all right, that's not interesting to me. Like, I'm not the guy that's like, as long as I help one person, it's all worth it. I will fucking be mortified if my life adds up to I help one person. And I get it. That's just a me thing, right? If people are down to help one person, I love it. Do your thing. That's just not me. So I want to help millions of people. And if they never know who I am, I'm okay with that. I just want to know that I love the thing I was struggling at to try to help them, right? So the process was awesome for me. I love filmmaking. It's my first love when it comes to business or career or art, however you want to think about it. So as I looked at, okay, if I'm helping 2% of the people doing what I'm doing now, right, which is think like this, act like this, and your life will be better. How do I help the 98%? And the more that I got into the neuroscience of it all, I realized that the only way that humans assimilate truly disruptive information is through narrative. So you've got to hit people with narrative, and you've got to catch them at what they call the age of imprinting, which is 11 to 15. The earlier you can catch them, the better. But so right now, we're aimed at 11 to 15-year-olds, primarily in anime. So if anybody out there is an anime junkie, if anybody grew up on manga and anime and is a writer, hit me up. I want to know. We're looking for talent. So we want to tell stories that are going to empower people. So our hypothesis was, if Disney, or the question, I guess I should say, the central question we have, if Disney could create the most magical place on earth, could we create the most empowering place on earth through stories? And in doing that, we can bypass the logical part of the brain and get to the limbic part of the brain. Now, why did I team up with Steve Aoki? Because marketing is everything. And you can create the greatest story on the planet. If nobody sees it, then you've got nothing. So I knew that celebrity would get us just a metric shit ton of PR that we otherwise wouldn't get. When I was at Quest and I started doing mindset stuff, everybody's like, why is the protein bar guy talking about mindset? Then when I got into this side, I knew people are going to say the same thing. Why is the mindset guy, creating comic books? So I needed something that was going to blow open the doors and get a lot of attention, and it worked like a charm.
Where can people find that? Where can people find those comic books?
You can go to comics.impacttheory.com or at @itcomics on Instagram.
So your wife, Lisa, has been an integral part of your journey. The two of you post the most unique relationship content that I've ever seen. Can you talk about that and showcasing how you communicate? And I love how you hold up the signs that explain how you guys communicate with each other.
Yeah, look, man, there's a reason that people say that so my wife and I have been together now almost 20 years. So we've got some credibility here. We started out dirt poor and we worked our way together. So I think this is something I'm begging you to listen to, the same piece of advice you've heard 1,000 times, but let it land this time. The number one thing, if you want a relationship that thrives, is high level communication. Now the question becomes, what is high level communication? It is actually articulating everything that you're feeling, whether it's ugly, whether it's gross, whether it's based on insecurity, which it almost always will be. If somebody has upset you, I can promise you, it's what my wife and I say is, it's not about the tea. You're not arguing about the tea. The biggest fight my wife and I ever got in was over a cup of tea. And finally, about 2 hours deep in this thing, we were like, this is not about the tea. Like, what is this actually about? And so we started just confessing, like, and we weren't even aware of it. It's not like we knew. We just started like looking inward and going, why the fuck am I so mad about this? And you end up working backwards until you get to some sort of insecurity, something where the person is pushing on something. In that case, it happened to be, she was making me feel like I wasn't important. And so it's like, then you spiral the fuck out of control. And I was making my wife feel like I didn't know her and I wasn't listening. So you get into these like weird places. And we have learned, if you actually say that stuff out loud, as weird and hilarious and stupid as it might seem to somebody looking on the outside, you actually get through this stuff because you're like, oh shit, like this is how what you're saying is making me feel. I'm not saying that's what you are saying, but I am saying that's how I feel. And so I want to get to that. I want to know what your intention is. Did you intend that or not? We define words. That's another big thing for us. We never weaponize insecurities against each other, which of course you could do. Somebody tells you something 2 years ago. Finally, an argument comes up and you're like, aha, if I use this thing, I got him. I will win this argument. If you ever do that, you will break trust. And man, let me tell you, trust is the name of the game. Like relationships are sacrifices, man. So they've got to be worth it. And for them to be worth it, you've got to have an insane level of trust. You've got to be there trying to lift each other up all the time. And then it's bitching. Then it's worth, like, literally at a neurochemistry level, it is the greatest gift you will ever have is reciprocated love. So, and it's, here's the thing. I heard the person before me was talking about, look, if you lose all your money, you can get it back. Truth. If you, like, the greatest joy that a life has to offer you is a shared life. And that has to be done in real time. So there's no way to get that back. So if you fuck it up in year 7, like, you've got to go back with somebody new and now live those 7 years again with somebody doing it right. Now, thank God you actually can do that, but there's no way to short circuit it. There's no way to go faster. So I'm just super aware of how important and ultimately delicate trust in a relationship is. So I don't want to fuck it up.
So how do you recruit talent, investors, retailers, listeners to buy into your vision?
So those are going to be primarily all around one thing, which is you've got to get them to understand and feel what that mission is. So my thing is, I always tell my team, get me in the room. If you get me in the room, I will fucking make someone believe in what I'm talking about. Because look, we can all feel each other's energy, right? Energy is contagious. So if you can get somebody in the room and you can legitimately embody what you're after because you believe in it to the core of your being, you've thought about that thing more than you've thought about anything else in your life, and you're really on fire for it, you're going to be able to get other people on fire for it. But if it's bullshit, if it's not real, if it doesn't add value, if there's nothing really there, if you have deep insecurities that you're not doing something that matters, you're never going to be able to get people to believe in it. But my thing is, like, I really fucking believe this. Like, I really believe if people do what I'm saying, it will change your life forever. And so my goal is every day to get better at articulating that in a way that bypasses the logic, hits people in the emotion, and then gets them to join me. And then from a team perspective, you've got to, because getting them is easy, keeping them is much harder. And so you've got to do, I mean, that's a fucking, we could do an hour just on how to keep employees. But it's like, you've got to get people to see that you're the most diehard motherfucker in your company. If anybody thinks for a half a second that they're outworking you, you have already lost.
So that actually leads me to my next question. You said something on your site that says, passion will help you keep fighting to reach your goals when things get difficult. Center your life around your passion.
Church. I love it. I love hearing it. So yeah, passion's about energy. And if you really think about, so I want people to embrace whatever religion or spirituality that you believe in. You are having a biological experience. Now, maybe God gave you this biology. I don't really care. I'm just saying you have biology. Your brain is creating a virtual reality for you. So whether you think we live in a simulation or not, I can promise you that you have a brain that is trying its best to create a version of reality that's going to keep you alive. It is not in any way, shape, or form trying to create a version of reality that is objective, right? If it was objective, you would just know I have this many photons falling on my eye. There's that many photons hitting the table over there. Like, that's how you would perceive the world, but you don't. So there's actually a region of your brain called the deep limbic system. Its job is not to tell you what's happening. Its job is to tell you how to feel about what's happening. So if you have a region of your brain that tells you, ooh, this is good, or this is bad, like you have to really understand what is happening, what triggers it, why it can be different from one minute to the next, and take control of that. So one of the ways you take control of your life is with passion, because passion is going to give you that neurochemical boost of energy. And when you have, and look, energy can be broken down in just the mitochondria of your cells are creating ATP. Now, why is it that you can put a hype song on and suddenly you go from being tired to having energy, right? Like that's sort of one experience that I think people get. They've had that visceral experience of when your favorite song comes on, you just feel different. You feel better. You could feel more aggressive. You have more energy. You're ready to go harder and faster. Like there's a reason in the Olympics, they won't let you listen to music while you run because it will actually change your performance. It's fucking crazy. Wow. So that's like passion is that on steroids. Like when you believe in it and you're there to fight and you're just not going to give up for anything. So, but you have to build that into your life. You're not going to turn inward and find passion. Okay. Passion is not an archaeological dig. It's an architectural build. You've got to build that shit. But once you understand how to build it and then why you're building it for that energy, then you'll have another tool at your disposal to actually get you through when shit gets hard, because it will get hard.
So another line that I saw on Impact Theory's website was, you can acquire new skills in any area at any time. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, look, I am not that bright. And people confuse verbal ability. I have verbal ability, and I have worked my fucking ass off to get what little sort of advantage I have. Every amount of energy that I put into verbal, I always got a slightly better return. So let's call it a 1.3x return on my time. Somebody else maybe gets a 0.7. So it's like they think because I'm highly verbal that I have inordinate intelligence, which unfortunately I do not. So to give you an idea, when I left for college, my own mother quietly assumed I was going to fail. The college counselor told me not to pursue film as a major because they said I was never going to get in. My best friend said, I just assumed you were going to marshmallow your way through life. And when I asked my now father-in-law for his blessing to marry his daughter, he said no, because he did not think I was going to be able to take care of her. So here's the thing. People always think that either I'm saying that to be humble or that those people misidentified me, but they didn't. That's just who I really was at that time. But every species and everybody paying attention, this is the part to listen to. This is what I call the only belief that matters. Nothing else that I've said tonight matters. This matters. Every species has to decide, do we pre-program everything or are we an adaptation species? A horse comes out within minutes, that motherfucker is up and running around. It's crazy. Humans, on the other hand, for years, they can't take care of themselves. It's crazy, right? We can't hold our own head up when we're born. We shit in our pants for a long time, for a distressingly long time. So we have taken a totally different strategy, which is we can layer culture, we can layer environment, we respond through epigenetics. We can have these massive changes based on what's going on in our environment, which makes us an animal that has chosen adaptation, growth, learning over pre-programming. It makes us able to go in a lot of different directions. Now, that's the very thing that can fuck people up. If you have a bad childhood, the deck is stacked against you, man. You can have a lot of extra work. Doesn't mean you can't undo it, but it means it's going to be hard because you learned some bad lessons early on. But we can change. You can change at a physiological level. An easy example of that is if you expose yourself to cold for long enough, your what's called white fat will turn into brown fat. Brown fat is more thermogenic, has more vasculature in it, so that it's actually kicking off heat. So, and that's how people end up, like, if you look at Inuits and shit like that, they're going to have a lot more brown fat than somebody that's, at the equator. So that's the physical level. And then the exact same thing is happening at the brain level where you can learn new things. I mean, all of us have done it, right? You can learn an instrument and it actually changes your brain. You can learn a new language. You can learn math. You can learn entrepreneurial skills, like whatever, emotional stuff. You can learn all of it, but it takes deliberate practice. It will not happen by accident. You really have to go in on that shit. But my thing is, if you have that belief that if you put time and energy into learning a skill, you will be rewarded with an improvement in your ability to do something, okay? Skills have utility. Really want people to understand that. You don't read a book so you can check it off or tell people that you read it. You don't get good grades so that you can, tell your parents that, look, hey, I'm worth something. You learn some shit because it lets you do something in the real world. So that's the thing, like, architecture is probably the easiest example of that. Don't learn it well, the house fucking falls down. Learn it well, you can build a bridge. So it's learn shit, man. Like, but you have to believe that your energy and time will be rewarded. So that's why I call it the only belief that matters. Everything will follow from that belief. Because if you don't believe that your time and energy will be rewarded with improved skill set, you won't try to improve your skill set, which means you will be dominated by people like me, who every fucking day I'm trying to get better at something. And I do that year after year after year after year. So it is the only belief that matters.
So another sentence you guys have was, mistakes are a great teacher to those who are willing to admit that they made one.
Yeah, so most people, look, your ego is going to fuck you up. You have what's called the psychological immune system, and it is rad. It is saving you from committing suicide. So I'm grateful that we have it, but what it's going to do is try to tell you how everything that's bad that's ever happened to you is not your fault, and it will soothe your ego in that process, but it's also going to hold you back. So pain activates areas of the brain that are tied to focus and memory. So you actually want to feel the pain, but you have to own, okay, there's something I can do differently. So I always tell myself, this is all my fault. Not so I feel badly about myself, so that I pay the fuck attention and look for what I need to do in order to improve so that I don't get that result next time. And once you realize the only belief that matters is true, and that you can get better at anything at any time, you become so desperate for people to remove your blind spots, to tell you what you could be doing differently so that you can improve in that area and thus get better, build a better house, build a stronger bridge, whatever it is you're trying to do. You can actually get better at that, outperform people, which of course in business is the name of the game. This is fucking competitive. So you've got to get better than the next person. So you've got to want to know the truth about where you're messing up. And that starts with admitting that you made a mistake. So I always try to get people to understand this from the perspective of artificial intelligence. In AI, they get the algorithm to run what they call samples. So try something. And if you failed, it doesn't cry and say, oh, I'm a terrible algorithm, I'm never going to get good at this. It just goes, rad, I have a sample. That either took me closer to the objective or it didn't, which is my obsession, right? Do and believe that which moves you towards your goals, period. End of story. You can change your goal, but man, if it doesn't move you towards your goal, either change your goal or fucking change your path because it's not working for you. And that's like my whole thing. So getting the information that I need when I run a sample instead of calling it a mistake. I tried something, I have information. I'm willing to admit that information is not what I wanted, what most people would call a mistake. I adjust and I try again. And now this information begins to stack. And once you believe, like really believe, not at like a bullshit, like, oh, this is another Instagram fucking post, but like really believe to the core of your being that humans are wired to learn from their mistakes. That's why they hurt, to trigger memory and focus. So you look at it, figure out what you did wrong. It gives you the energy to want to learn and never repeat that mistake again. So if you really believe that that cycle is the most powerful way in which we learn, suddenly you actually want to admit, you want to find all the areas in which you were wrong so that you can get better.
2 questions left. Would you sell Impact Theory today, or is this your legacy business?
I don't think of legacy, but that might just be a weird lexicon thing. So because I know I need meaning in my life, if I sold Impact Theory, I'd just be building something else. Impact Theory, so the short answer is no. Impact Theory is exactly what I would do even if I wasn't getting paid. So that to me is, look, I'm in a very fortunate position. I work my ass off to get to this point where nobody can tell me what to do, and I have the resources to fund this, and I can lose money for years and years and years and not have to worry about it. So yeah, I would not sell.
Final question. Ready for this one? What is the meaning of life?
That is very easy. So the meaning of life is to figure out, no, motherfuckers, lean in. Lean in. This is it. Figure out how many skills, how much of your potential you can turn into skills that allow you to serve not only yourself, but other people. So the reason that's the meaning of life has to do with what I call the physics of being human. So we have this innate desire for meaning. We have this innate desire to serve other people. You want to do rad shit for yourself, 100%. You want to get better and stronger for yourself, 100%. But you will always feel adrift. You will feel unfulfilled if you're not able to help yourself and other people. So we all have this tremendous amount of potential, right? So every species has to choose pre-programmed or basically load people up with potential. And we just have something innate to us that is deeply unsettled if we're not making progress. Progress is one of the most foundational pillars to fulfillment, to feeling good. Feeling good is the right way to say it versus happiness. But yeah, that is truly the meaning of life. How much of your potential can you turn into actual usable skills?
And where can people find you, find your podcast, find your world online?
At TomBilyeu, baby, across all socials. At TomBilyeu. It's spelled a little weird. B as in Bravo, ILYEU. Same on YouTube. YouTube is where I go the most ham. Instagram. And again, if we have any writers out there that grew up on anime or manga, hit your boy up. Probably Twitter or IG is the best place for that.
Awesome. I truly appreciate you being here tonight. You guys are listening to TomBilyeu, Quest Nutrition, Impact Theory, crushing it for us tonight. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me. Peace out, everybody.
All right, so I'm going to do one final giveaway, but this is going to be a big one. I'm going to do 5 people Cash App, 5 people Bitcoin, and 5 people are going to win one of these crates from 100millionacademy.com filled with a bunch of prizes in here. I can't even turn it over, but there's a lot of stuff in here. All right, so 15 winners. So what we're going to do is you're going to email to winner@100millionacademy.com. What is the meaning of life that TomBilyeu said? Just the first few words or the first main sentence of what did TomBilyeu say is the meaning of life. Email to winner@100millionacademy.com. We're going to pick 5 winners for Cash App, 5 winners for Bitcoin, and 5 people are going to win one of these boxes, one of these crates from 100millionacademy.com. So you were watching Elevator Nights tonight, the $1 billion edition. All of our speakers tonight had a $1 billion exit. Currently have a $1 billion company or angel invested into 7 or more $1 billion companies as well. We're going to be here with you every single Sunday. You can just make sure you get registered at elevatornights.com. And if you want to watch the replays, go on to YouTube and about Tuesdays or Wednesdays every single week and go on to the Elevator YouTube channel. You can see all the previous weeks. My name is Dan Fleyshman. My sleepy dog is Riley. And we'll see you guys soon.